The gray sky is like a dirty old cloth, pressing down on the heads of the ruined city. The wind is mixed with the smell of decay, which stings the nose. Haoyu squatted beside the ruins of the wall, wiping the sweat from his forehead. He held an old scanner in his hand. It was picked up from an overturned police car. The battery still had half a cell left, and a weak green light flashed on the screen. He pressed the button, and the scanner hummed low as it scanned a pile of rusty iron pipes and broken glass in front of him. "There's nothing valuable," Haoyu murmured to himself, with a hint of helplessness in his voice. He is 25 years old and was a small vendor before the end, selling some electronic accessories to make a living. Now, these hands have mastered the ability to search for treasures in the ruins. The small tribe is maintained by these leak pickers like him. There are about 20 people crowded in the basement of the old factory, and their life is like chewing wax. Laochen, the leader of the tribe, walked from a distance, his steps shuffling and his face as pale as a ghost. "Haoyu, someone fainted again last night. Xiaohua's mother is suffering from hunger. The food is almost gone, and 3 tools are broken. We have to find a way." Haoyu stood up, patted Laochen on the shoulder, and tried to force a smile. "I know, Laochen. Give me a day and I'll wander around the surrounding ruins. Maybe I can come back in exchange for something." Laochen nodded, with a glimmer of hope in his eyes, and turned around to leave, his back swaying in the wind and sand. Haoyu took a deep breath. The air in the ruins was mixed with the smell of metal and low growls from the distance. Those mutated wild dogs were wandering nearby again. He shouldered his backpack and stuffed it with a scanner, a rusty can opener and a few homemade smoke bombs. After the apocalypse, technology has become a luxury, but Haoyu can always squeeze some value out of the wreckage. He remembered the transaction records he had read before the end, and now he used them all. He walked carefully through the crumbling streets, with crumbling asphalt beneath his feet. Occasionally, when he stepped on a loose brick, it would make a crisp sound, which made his heart beat faster. The sun was scorching and his skin was burning, but his mind kept thinking, there was a small camp nearby. I heard they had food but lacked tools. If I could change. 2 hours later, Haoyu came to the ruins of an abandoned supermarket. 2 guards stood at the door, holding iron pipes in their hands and scanning with vigilant eyes. He raised his hands and stepped closer. "Hey, brothers, I'm Haoyu from the small tribe in the East District. I brought some goods and wanted to exchange for some food." One of the guards, a strong man with a beard, looked him up and down. "What kind of goods?" "We don't collect garbage." Haoyu took out the scanner from his backpack, turned on the demonstration mode, and let it scan nearby iron pipes. This thing can detect metal content and help you find better tools and materials. There are also these can openers, which are guaranteed to be easy to use. Can you change some canned food or dry food? The strong man hesitated for a moment, then turned around and called in, "Boss, someone is here to trade." Soon, a middle-aged woman came out, her eyes narrowed into slits. "Boy, that looks like something. Come on in, but don't play any tricks." It was cool and humid inside the supermarket, and the air was filled with a musty smell. The shelves were empty except for some scattered wrapping paper. The woman called herself Aunt and took Haoyu to the back warehouse. "We don't have much food, but we are really short of tools. Give your scanner a try." Haoyu demonstrated on the spot, scanning a pile of scrap metal, and the recyclable components were displayed on the screen. "Look, there are copper wires here that can be melted to make blades." The aunt's eyes lit up and she nodded, "Okay, in exchange for 5 cans of beans and 2 hammers." When the deal was finalized, Haoyu breathed a sigh of relief. The backpack was heavy, filled with food and tools. He thanked his aunt and chatted a few more words before leaving. "I heard that your tribe is having a campfire party. Next time I will bring the goods to exchange." "Welcome, kid. In the apocalypse, keep in touch with more people and live longer." The aunt waved her hand, with a hint of tired warmth in her voice. As the sun set, Haoyu returned to the tribe. Laochen and several women gathered around, staring directly at the backpack. "Is it done?" Laochen asked. Haoyu opened the bag, and the silver light of the can flickered. There are enough beans to eat for 3 days, and a hammer can repair a shotgun. The crisis has eased a bit. The women cheered, and one of them hugged his arm. Haoyu, you are our savior. During dinner porridge with some beans, Haoyu looked at everyone's satisfied faces and felt a warm current in his heart. Before the end, he had always been alone, but now he felt that he would not last long alone. You have to connect more people and build a network. As night falls, the tribal campfires are lit. The orange firelight danced, illuminating 20 tired but tenacious faces. The firewood crackled and the smell of smoke mixed with the aroma of roasted potatoes. Sitting in a circle, people began to share, who hunted the rabbit and who avoided the monster. When it was Haoyu's turn, he cleared his throat and stood up. Everyone has heard about today's transaction. I used the old technology one picked up in exchange for food and tools. A young man asked, Haoyu, how do you know that the camp has goods? Haoyu smiled, information. Listen to other people's chats and keep it in mind. Next time, I plan to go to ruins farther away, but the road is not safe. Who is interested in joining? In the firelight, a figure stood up. The woman is tall and strong, with sharp eyes under her short hair, and her arms are wrapped in old bandages. She is new here. I heard she escaped from the North District. My name is Sinyan. I'm interested in what you said about the deal. I'm a soldier, specializing in guarding routes. I've seen many monsters and survived both times. Haoyu looked at her, Sinyan's eyes were firm, like a sharpened knife. Why help me? In the end, who'll believe whom? Sinyan approached the fire, squatted down, picked up a stick of firewood, and threw it into the fire, sparks flying everywhere. Because I'm tired of working alone. The tribe in the North District was destroyed because of infighting over resources. The network you mentioned sounds reasonable. I'll protect your route in exchange for a share. How about it? People around him whispered, some nodded, and some hesitated. Lauchen said, Haoyu, this girl looks reliable. Give it a try? Haoyu stretched out his hand and Sinyan held it, his palm rough and strong. Deal. But there must be rules, sharing intelligence and not betraying each other. Sinyan grinned, showing a row of white teeth. The rules are good, I like them. I'll go with you on the first route tomorrow. Go to the southeastern ruins. There are old factories there, and maybe there are batteries. The firelight reflected on Haoyu's face, and his heart moved. Survive in isolation, like a lone wolf, and one day you will starve to death. But now, having someone willing to work side by side feels good. Perhaps, this is the beginning. Connect with others, build a network, and there will be some light at the end of the world. Everyone continued to chat, and laughter began to rise around the fire. Haoyu looked at the night sky. The stars were sparse but brighter than before. Tomorrow, the road will be long, but he will no longer be alone. Sinyan patted him on the shoulder, go to bed early, man. Monsters don't wait for anyone. Haoyu nodded, and the firelight lengthened their shadows and merged into the darkness. It was just dawn, and the outline of the ruined city was still wrapped in mist, like a giant beast waking up, exhaling moist breath. Haoyu rubbed his eyes and climbed up from the straw mat in the basement. The smell of last night's campfire was still stuck to his clothes, mixed with the smell of earth. He grabbed his backpack, checked the smoke grenades and scanners inside, and mentally planned his route for the day. Southeast ruins, old factory area, there are many batteries and wires, but monsters also like to nest there. He didn't dare to go alone, but fortunately Sinyan was there. Let's go, man. We have to hurry before the sun comes up. Sinyan was already waiting at the door, carrying a modified iron barrel gun on her shoulder. The barrel was wrapped with iron wire and looked fierce. She slept on the edge of the tribe last night, as alert as a cat, and her patrolling footsteps were heard in the middle of the night. Haoyu nodded, and the two of them slipped out of the tribe and walked briskly across the gravel road. The morning breeze was cool and mixed with the putrid smell of the distant river. On both sides of the ruins are collapsed buildings, with steel bars poking out like broken bones. Occasionally, rats scurry past, making squeaking screams. The old factory you mentioned sounds reasonable. But where did the information come from? Haoyu asked as he walked, trying to relieve the tension in his heart. Xinyan glanced at him, with a smile on her lips. When I was escaping in the North District, I listened to the survivors chatting. They said that there were generator wreckage underground in the factory, and the batteries could still be fished out. But the road was difficult, and monsters like to hide in the sewers. Don't worry, I'll protect you. The two crossed a collapsed road. The remains of old cars on the side of the road were piled up into a hill, and the tires were as flat as deflated balloons. Haoyu took out a worn notebook that he picked up from the supermarket and began to record the surrounding information. There was a pile of iron pipes at the left turn, which could be used as a temporary barrier. The water was gurgling in the ditch ahead, but don't step on it, as it might be hiding a poisonous snake. He is used to this. He always has to find out the terrain before trading, just like the supply of goods before the end of the world. After walking for half an hour, the air suddenly became muggy, like a sign before a storm. Xinyan raised her hand to signal to stop and put her ears close to the ground. Did you hear it? A low roar. The monster is coming, a small one, maybe a group of mutant rats. Haoyu's heartbeat accelerated, the scanner buzzed, and the screen showed that there was a heat source moving 50 meters ahead. He swallowed and his mind raced. Fighting alone, rats can kill people, but the terrain has advantages. There's an overturned truck here, with a narrow space underneath that blocks the sides. Xinyan, don't fight hard. Lead them to the truck. I'll block the road with smoke bombs, and you hit them from above. Xinyan nodded, her eyes lit up with fighting intent. Smart. Let's go. A swarm of rats sprang out from the sewer, about 10 of them, as big as puppies, with hair tangled into thorns and eyes as red as hot coals. The leader hissed sharply and pounced on them. Haoyu threw the smoke bomb, and the gray smoke filled the air instantly, choking the rats and causing them to run around and hit the wreckage of the truck with a bang. Xinyan jumped on the roof of the car, swung the iron pipe gun like a sickle to harvest, broke a rat's leg, and the smell of blood filled her nostrils. Haoyu, left, she shouted. A rat bypassed the smoke and pounced on Haoyu's back. He rolled to the ground to avoid it, grabbed a sharp stone on the ground, and hit the rat on the head. Pain shot up in his arm, but he didn't stop. Trading logic flashed through his mind, crisis is opportunity. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of a figure on the side of the road, a thin girl, hiding behind the ruins wall, holding a knife in her hand and scanning her eyes warily. Hey! Who are you? Help or run! Haoyu shouted, his voice louder than the rat's cry. The girl hesitated for a second, then gritted her teeth and rushed out. The knife scratched the side of a rat, and blood spurted out. My name is Ziqing. I am an information dealer, specializing in selling maps. These rats have a weakness, the smoke makes them blind, so they can attack from behind. Her words were like a lifeline. Haoyu immediately adjusted. Xinyan, attack the rear. The three formed a temporary alliance. Ziqing quickly went around the tail of the rat group, the sword light flashed, and combined with the smoke and terrain, forced the rat group into the ditch. The last rat struggled into the water, grunted, and finally fell silent. The sound of gasping echoed in the air. Haoyu wiped the sweat from his forehead, and the scratches on his arms hurt. Xinyan put away the iron pipe and patted Ziqing on the shoulder. Well done, little sister. The information was accurate and saved our lives. Ziqing sheathed her knife and gasped with a smile. In the apocalypse, intelligence is life. I collect resource points here and sell them to passing tribes. But the rats are getting more and more fierce, so we have to join forces. Are you Haoyu? I heard that you are good at trading. I have a map of the southeast factory, and the battery location is clearly marked. Exchange points for a share? Haoyu's eyes lit up, and his heart felt warm. When trading alone, he always guessed as he went. Now with intelligence support, his efficiency doubled. This is growth from lone wolf to team, seeing value in crisis. Deal. Ziqing, you join us. We will share intelligence, I will manage the transaction, and you will escort and explore the path. Zicheng nodded and handed over a hand-drawn map with lines as fine as a spider web. Okay. But there have to be rules. Don't sell fakes, keep each other safe. The three of them continued to move forward, and Haoyu recorded new information as they walked, the weaknesses of the ditch rats and the hidden door at the factory entrance. The sunlight shining down on the ruins made the steel bars shine, and the wind carried the faint fragrance of wild flowers. The end of the world still smelled like this, which made people feel relieved. In the afternoon, they arrived at the southeastern ruins. The old factory looked like the carcass of a giant beast, with crooked chimneys and broken bricks on the floor. Zicheng led the way, bypassing the patrolling mutant birds, and sneaked into the basement. The air is damp and musty, and the place is filled with rusty machinery. Haoyu scanned around and found 3 half-full batteries, with green light flashing. Valuable goods. Can be exchanged for food and ammunition. Xinyan guarded the gate, and Zicheng recorded the surrounding ore points. The three of them cooperated tacitly, like gears meshing together. Haoyu thought to himself, in the past, when I was digging through the ruins alone, I was always worried. Now, with a partner, my mind works faster. Business is not just about exchanging goods, it is about using wisdom to weave a web and connect the scattered sand. As the setting sun lengthened the shadows, they returned to the tribe carrying the loot on their backs. As night fell, the campfire was lit again, and the firelight made everyone's faces red. The tribesmen sit around, and the sound of crackling firewood is accompanied by the aroma of grilled meat, with extra beans tonight. Haoyu, Xinyan and Zicheng were huddled together, and the heat by the fire hit their faces. Let's talk about today. Lao Chen handed over a bowl of hot soup, with the bitter aroma of wild vegetables floating in the soup. Haoyu spoke first, with a steady voice. We went to the southeast and encountered a swarm of rats, but we used the terrain and the alliance to balance it out. We retrieved the battery, which is enough to repair 2 guns. He took out the battery from his bag, and the metal shone under the firelight, attracting exclamations. Xinyan answered and grinned. Haoyu's smoke bombs helped me, I smashed 3 of them. Zicheng, this girl, has accurate intelligence, and the map is drawn like it's alive. Zicheng lowered her head to stir the fire, sparks dancing in her eyes. I used to work alone and sell information to make a living. But today I see clearly that it is easy to die in isolation. Haoyu, you have a good trading acumen, I will follow you. People around were whispering, and someone asked, how do I change the battery? How do I go to the supermarket? Haoyu shook his head, and an idea flashed in his mind. He stood up, his figure elongated by the firelight. It's not just exchange, it's necessary to build circulation. Like the pre-apocalyptic market, our tribe sells tools and batteries in exchange for food and cloth from neighboring camps. Intelligence sharing, joint defensive routes. It's not a single transaction, it's a network. To start on a small scale, connect 3 points first, us, the southeastern camp, and the remnants of the northern area. Lao Chen touched his chin. It sounds risky. But you are right, resources are not circulated and everyone is hungry. A woman nodded. Yes, last time Haoyu changed beans and saved Xiaowa's mother. Now it has expanded, and the children have hope. Xinyan slapped the table. I will protect the route. If anyone dares to snatch it, I will smash his head. Zicheng added, I collect information and avoid monsters and competitors. I heard that there is a guy named Jixin who monopolizes water sources in the Western District, so be careful. Around the fire there was laughter and discussion. As Haoyu listened, the belief in his heart surged like fire. In the past, he only picked up leaks for the tribe, but now he understands that connecting survivors is the real business. During the crisis, the team made him see clearly it was not about survival, but about rebirth. Perhaps this network will light more campfires. It was late at night, the firelight was fading, and the 3 of them exchanged glances. Haoyu whispered to Xinyan, try the first circulation line tomorrow? She nodded, let's go. Zicheng, get the map ready. Zicheng smiled, we have already prepared it. At the end of the day, we must have some rules. The embers of the campfire flickered, the wind blew away the smoke, and a distant roar could be heard faintly in the darkness. But tonight, the air in the tribe is much warmer. The morning light shines into the cracks of the tribe's remaining walls, pulling at the lingering shadow of the night like a golden thread. Haoyu opened his eyes, and the smell of campfire smoke from last night was still lingering in his nose. He stretched and sat up from the straw mat. Next to her, Xinyan had packed up her equipment and polished her iron pipe gun to a shine. Zicheng lowered her head to study a newly drawn map, frowning slightly as if she was solving an old puzzle. "Good morning, guys. Did you sleep well last night? The first line today is to arrive at the southeast camp before noon," Haoyu said, grabbing his backpack, which was filled with batteries and several repair tools. It was heavy, like carrying the future on his shoulders. Xinyan grinned and patted his shoulder. "Why does it smell good? I hear you snoring in the middle of the night. Let's go, I'll take the lead. Monsters have been making trouble recently, don't let them ruin your good business." Zicheng put away the map, her eyes shining. "I'll explore the way. Dong, the south camp is short of medicine, and our batteries can be exchanged for their antibiotics and bandages. The remaining troops in the north area have also been contacted, and weapons are exchanged for food. But when passing through the ruins in the west, we have to avoid Jixin's territory. I heard a rumor last night that they were stocking up on water." The three of them slipped out of the tribe, their footsteps making a crunching sound on the gravel. The fresh air is mixed with the fishy smell of the distant river, and early birds are chirping on the collapsed telegraph poles, as if mocking the dilapidation of the ruins. Haoyu was thinking as he walked, from fighting alone to joining a team, now he has to join the tribe. This step must be taken steadily, otherwise he will miss the mark and everything will be lost. But with Xinyan's gun and Zicheng's brain, he felt much more stable. After walking for 2 hours, we passed by a sloping square. The old fountain had dried up into a pit and was filled with weeds. Zicheng suddenly stopped and raised her hand to signal. The heat source ahead is a group of monsters. They are not rats, but mutated dogs, 5 or 6 of them, large in size, and like to attack in groups. Her voice was low, and the scanner buzzed for confirmation. Haoyu's heart tightened, and the transaction logic flashed in his mind. If the route is unsafe, the network will be cut off. But a crisis is also a test. Integrating intelligence and force is the way to go. Xinyan immediately drew her gun and pointed the iron pipe at the shadow in front. "I'll cover the front, you flank. Haoyu, prepare the smoke grenades. Zicheng, look for the weak point." The dogs sprang out from behind the abandoned bus wreckage, their hair tangled in clumps, their eyes glowing yellow. The leader roared like thunder, and his paws paved the ground to raise dust. The air was instantly filled with the stench of beasts, and Haoyu's hair stood up, but he did not panic and threw out smoke bombs. The gray mist filled the air like a doomsday fog, causing the dogs to collide and make a muffled sound. "2 on the left, aim for the legs," Zicheng shouted. She went around to the side and slashed a dog's hind leg with a knife. Blood spattered and dyed the weeds red. Xinyan jumped up and hit the lead dog's head with the iron pipe gun. The bone cracked loudly and the dog twitched and fell to the ground. She gasped and laughed. "These guys are thick-skinned, but once the smoke is blocked, the secret will be exposed." Haoyu used the crowbar to poke a dog in the eye. Mucus splashed on his sleeve, and the sticky touch made his stomach turn. But he gritted his teeth and held on. Under the attack of the 3 men, the dog group was defeated. The last one fled with its tail and disappeared into the fog. After the battle, Haoyu leaned against the wall of the bus and panted. His arms were sore, but there was a surge of heat in his heart. In the past, when he was in danger, he always hid or ran. Now, the team asked him to learn to fight back. "Well done, Xinyan. Your marksmanship is like a dart in a martial arts movie." He patted her back, and Xinyan wiped the barrel of the gun and hummed, "Don't be such a mouthful. Zicheng, your intelligence will save you. The weak point of the dog pack is the eyes, it's never wrong." Zicheng put away the knife, with beads of sweat on her face. "That's what a team is. If we go it alone, I would have fed the dogs. Haoyu, this route is protected, and the southeastern camp is close at hand. At noon, they arrived at the southeast camp, a group of abandoned warehouses surrounded by barbed wire. The guards were 2 strong men, armed with homemade crossbows and their eyes as alert as wolves. Haoyu stepped forward and raised his hands. "Don't fire, we are coming from the central tribe. Haoyu, bring batteries and tools, and change medicines. I heard that you are short of antibiotics." The leading strong man squinted his eyes and finally nodded. "Come in. The battalion commander is waiting inside." In the apocalypse, trading is a rare good thing. The camp was buzzing with people, and the smell of rice porridge and the bitterness of potion floated in the air. The battalion commander is a middle-aged woman with a weathered face, and her name is Auntie. She gathered around a broken table covered with empty bottles. "Battery? Good stuff. Our medical center is about to run out of medicine. Last week, 2 children had fevers and no antibiotics, so they almost failed to save their lives." Haoyu nodded and took out the battery from the bag. The green light flashed in the sun. 3.5 full pieces can repair your generator lights. In exchange for 10 bottles of antibiotics and bandages, plus intelligence, there are weapons wreckage in the North District. Should we join forces to circulate them? The aunt hesitated and touched her chin. "Sounds good. But Jishin's gang in the West District has recently blocked the water channel and said they want unified supply. Our small camp can't stop it." Ziqing interjected, her voice steady. "Jishin is not a good person. The intelligence I collected shows that his tribe has hoarded half of the reservoir's water and sent people to grab the surrounding ores, intending to monopolize the trade. There was news last night that he was targeting the medicine depot in the southeast. If you go it alone, you will be swallowed up sooner or later." The battalion commander's face darkened, and people around him whispered, and some cursed, "That bastard, you robbed our fabric last month." Haoyu saw the opportunity, and his mind was racing. The conflict was about to break out, and it had to be resolved with a deal. He stood up straight and said in a loud voice, "Don't worry. If Jishin has a monopoly, we will make an alliance to circulate. The central tribe will provide batteries and tools, the southeast will provide medicines, and the northern region will exchange weapons. The 3 parties will share the route and ensure each other's safety. The accounts will be shared fairly, and no one will be allowed to monopolize it. How about it?" The aunt stared at him, with a trace of surprise in her eyes. "Boy, your brain is like that of a big boss before the end of the world." "Okay, deal. But we have to prove it." Tonight at the campfire party, we invite people from the North District to come and sign the contract in public. Xinyan nodded. "I will protect you. Anyone who dares to cause trouble, I will smash first." Ziqing added, "I draw a map to mark the new sphere of influence and avoid the minefields." In the afternoon, they continued to move forward to connect with the remaining troops in the North District. There is a camp hidden in an old subway station. The leader is a veteran with a beard and a rusty rifle in his hand. The exchange went smoothly. The batteries were exchanged for several modified pistols and magazines. Haoyu tried to pull the trigger, and there was a crisp clicking sound, which made his heart heat up. "These guns can protect half of the route." The veteran smiled. "You know how to do business. Over at Jishin, I heard that he has sent spies, so be careful." As the sun set, the 3 returned to the southeast and the campfire was lit. The fire was blazing, reflecting the outline of the ruins outside the barbed wire fence. Tribal people were sitting around, and survivors from the north and southeast were huddled together. The smell of roasted corn and herbs was intertwined in the air, and someone was playing a broken guitar and humming old folk songs. Haoyu, Xinyan and Ziqing sat by the firelight jumping on their faces, like lighting up hope. Suddenly, a commotion came from behind the crowd. 2 men from the North District got into an argument, and one pointed at the people from the southeast and shouted, "You are hiding your medicines, so I gave you less when you changed the cloth last time." The guards from the southeast drew their swords, and the atmosphere was tense, and the blade shone cold under the firelight. Haoyu knew in his heart that this was the fermentation of old grudges. If they were not resolved, the alliance would be stillborn. He stood up and clapped his hands to attract attention. "Everyone, don't worry. In the apocalypse, conflict cannot solve hunger. Listen to me. The crowd fell silent, and he continued, Jishin monopolizes water sources in the west by inciting us to fight among ourselves. Ziqing, tell me your intelligence. Ziqing stood up, her voice as clear as a bell. There are 50 people in the Jishin tribe, they hoard water and ore, and they also bribe mutant dogs as a sentinel. He plans to block the southeastern medicine road and monopolize the market. But if the 3 battalions join forces and share intelligence and routes, his monopoly will be broken, battery replacement, weapon escort, and all of us will win. The veteran from the North District nodded, you're right. I've seen Jishin's virtue, his ambition is bigger than his brains. Southeast Auntie answered, Haoyu's battery saved our children, this network is worth a try. The noisy men exchanged glances, and someone whispered, okay, sign the contract. But there must be rules and no fakes are sold. Haoyu breathed a sigh of relief, and a warm current surged in his heart. In the past, he would only fight in a small way. Now, integrating intelligence to resolve conflicts and using force to escort is the strategy. The team transformed him from a businessman to a leader, and the web was woven like a spider's thread, and he was so excited that he felt like a fire in his heart. Deal! Let's celebrate with a barbecue tonight, and the first batch of goods will be released tomorrow. The fire burst and laughter spread. Xinyan whispered to Haoyu, you are handsome today and solved the problem beautifully. Ziqing smiled, intelligence plus force, invincible. Jishin is here, we are prepared. Haoyu nodded, looked at the crowd illuminated by the fire, and thought, the shortage of resources has been alleviated, but a greater challenge lies behind. This network has just started. The night wind blew, accompanied by a low roar in the distance, but the warmth around the campfire felt like home. Haoyu clenched his fists. Tomorrow, the route will extend further. The night wind gradually died down, and the embers of the campfire whispered outside the barbed wire, like an old man whispering the secrets of the doomsday. Haoyu wrapped his worn jacket tightly, listening to the snoring and occasional whispers around him, still replaying tonight's signing in his mind. The rusty gun of the North District veteran and the medicine bottle of the Southeast Ant are all embedded in his network like puzzle pieces. But Jishin's shadow is like a dark cloud, and Ziqing's information makes him sleep uneasy. That guy will not sit idly by. Xinyan leaned to the side, with the iron pipe gun across her knees, breathing evenly. Ziqing curled up in the corner, with the map pressed against her chest, like guarding the veins of the entire ruins. Just after dawn, the rooster crows from the southeast camp pierced the silence, mixed with the wet smell of the river in the distance. Haoyu woke up his friends. Get up, we celebrated enough last night. Today we are going to the old factory area in the south. There is a small tribe there that is short of food. Our tools and batteries can be used to exchange for their cans and cloth. The guns from the north area must also be transported there to strengthen the alliance. Xinyan rubbed her eyes and sat up, grabbing the barrel of the gun. I opened the way. Jishin didn't show up last night, but Ziqing said that he has many spies, so be careful. Ziqing nodded, with sleepy eyes. The information has been updated. There is an old sewer shortcut on the south side, but there is Jishin's sentry point on the west edge. They are guarding a small puddle with a water purification filter inside. The 3 of them packed their bags. Haoyu's backpack was bulging with 5 batteries, 3 repaired wrenches, and several bottles of antibiotics bought from the southeast. The air was filled with the humidity of morning mist, and the footsteps on the broken bricks were as light as ghosts. They walked around the abandoned square, the sun shining down and lengthening the shadows, as if mocking the fragility of this doomsday game. Haoyu said as he walked, the alliance is a start, but it must expand. Jishin monopolizes water sources, so we will nibble from the edges. Intelligence is the key. Ziqing, your brain is worth more than my battery. Ziqing smiled, don't praise me. Haoyu, your trading network makes me feel that the end is not the end, but a new market. After walking for half an hour, we passed by the ruins of a collapsed factory. The smell of rust was tangy, mixed with the squeaking of mutant rats in the distance. Suddenly, Ziqing raised her hand. Stop. There is an ambush ahead. There are 3 heat sources, humanoid, not monsters. Behind the bushes to the west. Haoyu's heart sank, and his hair stood up. Jishin's? Damn it, the intelligence said they haven't taken action yet. Before he finished speaking, 3 figures emerged from the shadows, wearing patchwork leather armor, holding iron rods and homemade crossbows. The scarred man in the lead yelled, "Haoyu? Leave the battery." Boss Jishin said that if you rob his business, you have to pay a price. The arrow whizzed over and grazed Haoyu's arm, and the burning pain made him grit his teeth. The air was instantly filled with the stench of rust and sweat, and dust was flying like an apocalyptic sandstorm. He threw down the smoke bomb, and the gray fog filled the air, blurring his vision. Run! Xinyan, cut off the rear. A melee broke out, and Xinyan hit an ambusher on the shoulder with her gun. The muffled sound of broken bones echoed. She gasped and shouted, "Two!" Haoyu, 2 batteries fell out of the bag. Zicheng pulled Haoyu around to the side, and slashed one with the knife. The man's legs were filled with the smell of blood. They are few, but they have backup. Jishin's mark, this is his edge sentry. Haoyu picked up the iron crowbar and stabbed the last one with his backhand. The dull sound of the stick hitting the flesh made his stomach turn. But the backpack was too light, and 2 batteries and a wrench were thrown among the rocks, as if a piece of flesh had been cut out of my heart. They retreated to the entrance of the sewer in embarrassment, leaning against the wall while panting. Haoyu wiped the mud from his face, and his heart was churning. In the first ambush, he lost his capital. This is not a simple robbery, it is Jishin warning that his network threatens the careerist. In the past, he would withdraw into the tribe to lick his wounds. Now, the team allows him to see the possibility of counterattack. Zicheng, where's the intelligence? Where did these guys come from? Zicheng gasped and took out a small notebook from her arms. They are patrolling the edge of the Jishin tribe, guarding the puddles in the southwest. There is an old filter warehouse there, hiding a dozen water purifiers, Jishin's lifeblood. But the guards are loose, there are only 5 people, and there is a gap during the night shift. If we turn against him and steal it, we can cut off his water supply. Haoyu's eyes lit up, and the pain turned into excitement. Good idea. Use this to make up for the lost battery. Xinyan, you escort. Zicheng, lead the way. Action tonight, switch from defense to offense. Xinyan nodded and wiped the blood on the barrel. I like it. Jishin wants to play hard, let's play smart. The 3 of them took advantage of the fog to detour to the southern factory area and completed the transaction first in exchange for a few boxes of cans and fabrics. The tribe leader frowned after hearing about the ambush. Haoyu, your alliance sounds reliable, count me in. In the afternoon, they sneaked back to the edge of Jishin, and the sunset dyed the ruins red like blood. The puddle is hidden behind the collapsed warehouse, and the hum of the water purification filter is faintly heard, as alluring as a heartbeat. Zicheng whispered, the shift is at dusk, there is a 5-minute gap. Haoyu, you trade wisdom, pretend to be Jishin's internal agent, distract the 2. I steal the filter element. Xinyan cuts off the rear. Haoyu took a deep breath, and there was a change in his heart, from defensive panic to active calculation. This is the joy of growing up. He put on the torn cloak he took from the ambusher and walked to the sentry point. Hey, brothers. The boss sent me to deliver information that the Southeast Alliance is taking action. The 2 guards turned their heads with suspicious eyes. Who are you? Where's the mark? Haoyu's mind was racing and he threw out the fake battery he took out of his bag. Look, this is the boss's sample. That guy Haoyu fell into the trap and lost all the batteries. Call someone. The guards were distracted. Zicheng slipped into the warehouse like a ghost and took out 3 filter elements. The heavy touch felt like holding the pulse of victory. Xinyan was on guard in the dark, the iron barrel gun ready to go. Seeing the opportunity, Haoyu pretended to trip and hit a guard on the knee. I betrayed you. The melee started again, but this time they gained the upper hand, took the filter element, dropped the smoke bomb and retreated. Behind him, the guards roared like wild dogs barking, mixed with the splashing of puddles. As night fell, they rushed back to the southeast camp, where the campfire was lit. The firelight illuminated the newly joined young people from the south and veterans from the north. The crowd sat around, and the smell of baking cans and the plastic smell of the filter intertwined in the air. Haoyu placed the stolen filter element next to the fire, and everyone exclaimed, "This is Zixin's product. How did you get it?" He smiled and patted Ziqing on the shoulder, "Thanks to Zixing's intelligence. We were ambushed and lost something, but we turned around and took a bite. To survive in the apocalypse, it's not about who has a better gun, but who has more brains." The crowd was buzzing and talking, and the North District veterans raised their glasses. "Actually, it was a broken bowl, boy. Tell me about your philosophy. How can the alliance be stable?" Haoyu stood up, and the firelight jumped on his face, like lighting up the fire in his heart. He cleared his throat and said in a loud but down-to-earth voice, "Everyone, the end of the world is like a pot of porridge. There are few resources and everyone is hungry. But after beatings, only bones are left. Do you remember the story you heard when you were a child? Sun Wukong borrows the east wind, not with a stick, but with calculations. My network is that east wind. Trade for peace, not for monopoly, but for sharing. Join us, exchange batteries for medicine, protect food, and have intelligence all over the world. If Zixin wants to monopolize it, let's work together to defeat him. To survive, we must survive together." After the words fell, the crowd burst into applause, and someone shouted, "Boss Haoyu, count me in." The young man from the south nodded. "What you said is like the wisdom of the market that Grandpa said. Okay, I will lead someone to protect the route tomorrow." Aunt Southeast smiled. "The filter element saved me a lot, kid. We can drink clean water." Ziqing whispered to Haoyu, "You shared beautifully and attracted a dozen new faces." Haoyu felt warm in his heart. Before, he was defensive and always afraid of losing. Now, the feeling of active expansion is like drinking hot soup, which warms his bones. Business wisdom shines in adventure. This is the true meaning of doomsday. Beside the fire, Xinyan pulled up a few new strong men. "Come, let's start the training. Haoyu's net has expanded, and the guards have to keep up." She handed out the iron rod and demonstrated the swing. "Monsters or ambushes, start from the weak point. Eyes, legs, cut off the escape route first. Follow me and practice, one by one. 1 hour later, we'll be on the route tomorrow." The new guards followed him with breaths, and the whistling of the sticks mixed with laughter and curses. "Sister, this move is like a martial arts master." Xinyan grinned. "No nonsense, there are no masters in the end. Haoyu, watch your shooting skills." It was late at night and the campfire was getting weaker, but the excitement of the crowd remained undiminished. Haoyu sat on the edge, watching Ziqing update the map, and Xinyan wiping the new gun, thinking, Zixin will fight back if he loses his puddle. But this opportunity turned into a crisis, and the network spread like a vine. Tomorrow, the route will lead to further ruins, with more tribes waiting to be connected. In the distance, there was a faint roar, but around the fire, there was a roar of life. The embers of the campfire are still creaking, whispering of the unknown of tomorrow. Haoyu rubbed his temples, and the low roars in the distance gradually faded away, replaced by the buzzing of night insects, and the air was filled with the lingering fragrance of barbecue and the moisture of earth. He watched Ziqing immersed in drawing in a small notebook, and the rustling sound of the pen tip scraping against the paper made him feel at ease. Xinyan put away the gun and patted his shoulder. "Go to sleep, Haoyu. Zixin lost the filter element there, and he was furious, but our net is getting denser and tighter, and we will eat a bigger piece tomorrow." When I woke up, it was already broad daylight. The crow of chickens in the southeast camp was mixed with the rhythm of the river lapping at the shore. Haoyu pushed open the rag door curtain, and the sunlight was as dazzling as an old knife. He took a deep breath of the morning mist, mixed with the rusty smell of the ruins in the distance, and turned to Ziqing and said, "How is the intelligence? Who was given the filter element last night?" Ziqing rubbed his eyes and took out the updated map from his arms. The veterans in the north took 2 to strengthen their water purification stations. The youth in the south kept 1 and used their fabrics to make filter bags. Haoyu, your sharing made them stick together. Now the alliance has 4 stable tribes, the southeast, the north, the south factory, and the few stragglers from last night. But I heard from the spies last night that Jishin was making a lot of noise. He sent people to search the entire area around the waterhole and arrested a few of our new recruits for questioning. I heard that he was planning some kind of big network, not a trade, but a monopoly. He wanted to use his sentinel to block all waterways and food roads to stop the surrounding tribes. Haoyu frowned and felt a chill in his heart. Jishin, an ambitious man, was unwilling to lose the filter element and wanted to play big. In the past, he would panic and retreat. Now, the team's tacit understanding makes his mind race with calculations. We can't wait. Today's route leads to the old city center. There is a fifth tribe there, which is said to guard a bunch of remaining technology, simple communicators, and the like. We will replace them with filters and batteries to optimize circulation. Zicheng, lead the way. Sinyan, guard double. Sinyan grabbed the iron pipe gun and grinned. Okay, I trained the newcomers last night and will follow you today. Haoyu, your mind is quick. If this trip goes well, the network will come alive, like visiting people in the alleys of old Beijing, and the news will spread all over the world. The three of them set out with the 5 new guards. Their backpacks were stuffed with cans and fabrics from last night's transaction. The heavy weight felt like holding the weight of hope. Passing by the collapsed square, the sound of gravel rolling down at their feet was mixed with the rotten stench wafting in the wind. They walked around a pile of mutated rat corpses, gray for mottled, eyes still shining red. Zicheng whispered, the harbinger of the monster tide. The intelligence said that the rat population has increased sharply around the puddle in the west. Jishin lost the filter element, which may force the monsters to run around. Haoyu nodded, thinking, the crisis is superimposed, but this is also an opportunity. Trading is not about hiding selfish interests, but about leveraging one's own strength. After walking for 2 hours, the old city center came into view. The remains of tall buildings stood like broken teeth, and the air was filled with the smell of burnt wires and a faint hum. The fifth tribe is hiding in a fortress converted from an underground shopping mall. The entrance is a camouflaged iron gate, and the guards use homemade crossbows to warn them. The leader is a middle-aged woman named Alan, with sharp eyes like an eagle. Haoyu? I heard about your alliance. The road is blocked in Jishin. Our communicator has been broken for half a month, the news is lagging, and the food is almost rotting in the warehouse. Replace the filter element and battery? It's worth it. Haoyu smiled and patted open his backpack. That's not all. Look, this is fabric from the south, used as filter bags, antibiotics from the north, to prevent infection. Replace your simple communicator. I heard it was an old mobile phone modified and can transmit a 5-kilometer signal. If the Alliance uses it, the intelligence circulation will be 10 times faster. Monster, you can give an early warning when it comes. Alan squinted his eyes and touched the plastic shell of the filter element. It felt cool. Okay, but you have to increase the number. We have 5 communicators in exchange for your promise to protect the next monster wave. Haoyu thought, this is not only a transaction, but also a bridge for expansion. He nodded, deal. Sinyan, show the newcomers how to shoot. Zicheng, teach them the signal numbers. After the deal was finalized, Alan's tribe poured out its troops, and the sound of communicator testing buzzed in the air, like the beating of a heart resuscitating. Haoyu took one and fiddled with the buttons. The static buzzing made him excited. This thing optimizes everything. I used to rely on shouting, but now the signal network the southeast is called the North District, and the south is the joint factory. 5 tribes are one. The new guards gathered around, and a young man touched the communicator. Brother Hao, this is like a science fiction movie. Is there still Wi-Fi in the end? Haoyu smiled. It's not Wi-Fi, it's a lifeline. Remember, save the battery and remember the signal number. In the afternoon, they rushed back to the southeast camp. The communicators had been distributed and the signal lights flickered like sparks in the setting sun. Haoyu gathered everyone around the campfire. The fire was blazing, and the smell of roasted corn and canned food was fragrant, mixed with the smoke of firewood. The veterans from the North District, the young people from the South, and the 2 representatives sent by Alan all sat down, and the crowd buzzed and talked. Haoyu, your network has been expanded to 5, what will Zixin do? Ziqing leaned close to Haoyu's ear and whispered, the latest information, Zixin is gathering. After he threw the filter element, he sent spies to contact 2 small tribes in the west, promising a monopoly on water sources, but secretly ambushing monster bait wanting to create chaos and collapse our alliance. The conspiracy is big, there may be something going on tonight. Haoyu's heart sank. The taste of power was like a double-edged sword. The core of the network gave him confidence, but it also burdened him with responsibility. In the past, he only cared about small transactions. Now, the fate of the 5 tribes hangs on his mind. He cleared his throat and stood up. Everyone, tell the truth under the firelight. Zixin is unwilling to accept it. He wants to cut off our waterway and lure the monster tide to destroy the place. Ziqing's intelligence is accurate. The rats in the west have moved, and the tide is coming. The alliance must handle it. But we have a communicator, the intelligence is fast, there are filters, the water is stable, there are weapons to protect the road. Who is following whom? Food from the southeast, guns from the south, factory tools, and Alan's signal. What are the monsters like in the 3 kingdoms? The crowd burst into discussion, and Alan's representative clapped his legs. Haoyu is right. Our communicators are connected, and the signal number is shared. When the monster comes, just shout and everyone will respond. The veteran from the North District raised the bowl, do it. But Haoyu, you are the leader, you have a big responsibility, right? Haoyu's heart was churning. Yes, power is not a throne, but a shackle. But growth is about balance, trade for peace, responsibility for hope. He nodded, I'll take the lead, but we all have a showdown. Xinyan, organize the defense line. Ziqing, monitor the signal. Tonight's shift, if the monsters come, smash them. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a low roar like thunder in the distance, and the ground shook slightly. Ziqing grabbed the communicator, and the signal light flashed wildly. Here it comes. There is a tide of rats from the west, mixed with mutated dogs, hundreds of them. Zixin's bait has taken effect. There was a mess around the campfire, and the air was instantly filled with the panic smell of sweat and rust. The tide of monsters came like a black wave, their red eyes flashed in the night, and their claws scraped the ground like a heavy rain. Xinyan shouted, on the defense line. New guards, left wing, veterans, right wing. Aim the iron pipe gun at the eyes and break the legs. She rushed forward with her gun and hit a rat king in the head. The stench of blood plasma filled the air, and the muffled sound echoed like a drum. The guards followed, with clubs whistling, and the monster's screams mixed with the shouts of killing under the firelight. Hold it. Haoyu, where are the reinforcements? Haoyu's mind was racing, the communicator was holding in his hand, it was so hot. He dialed Alan, monster wave. The circuit is cut off in the west, and the alliance signal is ringing. 4 reinforcements, 5 communicators, and filters. Alan's voice was urgent, deal. I will bring 20 people, and we will arrive in half an hour. But you have to block it. Haoyu called to the North District again, veteran, gun support. Replace all batteries. The veteran shouted back, up. Let's go around from the east. He dropped the communicator, grabbed the crowbar, and joined the melee. A mutated dog rushed towards him and scratched his arm with its claws. The burning pain made him grit his teeth, but there was a surge of blood in his heart. This was the core test, trading for lives, responsibility to protect the public. The battle climaxed one after another, and monsters hit the barbed wire like a tide, making endless creaking and breaking sounds. Xinyan led the defense, and the iron pipe gun danced vigorously, left wing top. Ziqing, throw smoke. Ziqing threw out the marbles, gray mist filled the air, blurring the monster's sight, and the sound of coughing and claws were intertwined. Haoyu knocked back a wave of rats, sweat dripping from his blood, thinking, power allows me to take the lead, and responsibility allows me to persevere. In the past, he could escape, now, he is the center of the network and cannot stop it. The reinforcements finally arrived, and Alan's 20 men rushed in with crossbows, arrows whizzing like rain. Haoyu, the filter is worth it. gunfire roared in the North District, the tide of monsters receded, corpses piled up like mountains, and the smell of blood was too strong to be dispelled. Under the firelight, the crowd gasped. Xinyan wiped the barrel of the gun and grinned. We won. But Zhixin's conspiracy must be guarded against in the future. Ziqing updated the map. The tide has receded, but the west sentry point has been strengthened. He will not stop. Haoyu watched everyone surrounding the fire, the communicator still flashing, and he realized in his heart like a fire, the network was expanded to the 5 tribes, and the base was initially built a simple tower built with residual technology, and the signal covered the surrounding areas. But the balance between power and responsibility is like walking a tightrope. If you make one mistake, you will lose everything. The joy of growing up lights up a bigger fire in this apocalyptic ruins. In the distance, Zhixin's shadow is faint, but the noise of the alliance is already like the pulse of the new order. As the night faded, the embers of the campfire scattered into ashes in the morning breeze. Haoyu rubbed his sore arms. The smell of blood from last night still stuck to the tip of his nose, like a lingering shadow. The noise of the alliance came from all directions, the banging of the barrels of the veterans from the north mixed with the laughter and curses of the youth from the south. The representatives sent by Alan were distributing the last cans, and the air was filled with the aroma of burnt corn husks and the salty taste of sweat. He stood up, the communicator trembling slightly on his waist, and Ziqing's voice came from inside. Haoyu, morning. The signal is stable, and all 5 tribes are connected. But there was something strange at the west sentry point. Zhixin's spies went around in circles last night. They didn't charge directly, but they seemed to be feeling the bottom. Haoyu nodded, the feeling of accomplishment still warm in his heart, but mixed with a faint uneasiness. The monster tide has been resolved, and the network is like the courtyard houses of old Beijing, with connected portals and information circulation. But this guy Zhixin will not just die after losing the filter element. Okay, let's launch a new route today. The antibiotics in the North District are exchanged for factory tools, and the fabrics in the south are sent to Alan's place to renew the communication battery. Xinyan, take 3 newcomers to escort the south line. Ziqing, monitor the movement in the west. I will take the north line myself, and the guns at the veterans' place must be reinforced. Xinyan grabbed the iron pipe gun and patted his back. Haoyu, your leader held it back last night, and everyone was convinced. But if Zhixin tries to play tricks again, don't be soft. Let's go. The morning sun shines on the collapsed road, and the broken glass reflects the dazzling light. Haoyu leads 2 guards to push the modified trolley. The crunch of the wheels running over the gravel is accompanied by the cries of mutant birds in the distance, like a symphony of doomsday. The Northern District Veterans Camp is hidden behind an old warehouse, with a tight barbed wire fence and the sharp smell of machine oil and ammunition hanging in the air. The veteran leader Daniel, a strong man with a beard, squinted at the filter elements and fabrics on the car. Haoyu, thanks to your signal response to the monster wave last night, our gunners caught up and did not lose money. Change antibiotics? Okay, but increase the cost. Borrow 2 of your communicators. The signal at our edge sentry point is weak, so we can get early warning of the monster coming again. Haoyu smiled and patted the package open. It's not just borrowing, it's sharing. I'll refill the battery and open all the phone numbers. The alliance is not about working alone, it's about staying together to keep warm. It's like visiting during the new year. Whoever is missing will make up for it. Daniel touched the bottle of antibiotics, and the cool glass touch made him nod. Deal. Haoyu, your net allows us to live like human beings. But when I heard that Zhixin was recruiting people in the west, promising to monopolize the water source, the few stragglers were shaken. Haoyu's heart tightened, and he said calmly, the wavering is normal, but the waterway is cut off, and everyone is thirsty. Tell them to change the filter element at any time. The deal was successfully finalized. Haoyu waved the guard's cart back south while he stayed to chat with Daniel about the sentinel arrangement. The sun moved to noon, and the communicator suddenly buzzed. Ziqing's voice was urgent. Haoyu. Something happened on the southern route. Xinyan reported that they were attacked halfway. Zhixin's men, more than a dozen, armed with torches and iron hooks, smashed the fabric truck and burned half of the filter elements. The route was cut off, and Alan's battery transport no way. There was a bang in Haoyu's head, and his face turned pale. What? Where are the casualties? Ziqing gasped, Xinyan blocked 3, and lost his goods. But Zixin is trying to cut off our retreat. Haoyu threw down the communicator and hit his fist on the warehouse wall. Dust hit his face, and the rough touch mixed with the frustration in his heart. Trust collapsed too quickly. Last night we were celebrating the victory by fire, but today the southern line was cut off, the filter element burned, Alan's communication battery was stuck, and the Alliance's veins were like severed blood vessels. In the past, he would break down and escape. Now, the responsibility is like burning, but he gritted his teeth. Danyu, borrow 5 guns. I will go to the southern front to respond. Zixin is playing a surprise attack. We can't panic. Danyu frowned. Haoyu, this is against you. Everyone will doubt. Why can't your net hold the road? On the way back, Haoyu's mind was racing rapidly. The coolness of the wind blowing on his face mixed with the burning smell of fireworks in the distance made his heart churn. This is a test. The trading empire is not made of paper, it must be supported by flesh and blood. The southeastern camp was in chaos. Xinyan's arms were wrapped in cloth and stained with blood. Ziqing circled the raid point on the map. Zixin was precise. He figured out the time of the southern route. He threw torches from the flank of the ruins. He burned the goods and grabbed a newcomer for questioning. Alan called and was furious. The battery is low, the signal is weak, what if the monster comes again? There is also trouble in the North District, and the young people in the South said that the road is unstable and do not want to renew. Haoyu looked at the crowd's eyes, which turned from trust to doubt, like a knife piercing his heart. He took a deep breath, and the smoke in the air made his throat astringent. Everyone, listen to me. Zixin's sudden attack on the circuit is to break our confidence. But this is not the end, it is a turning point. The filter element is burned, but we still have inventory. The route is broken, we reopen it. Who is afraid of whom? Just like the old saying, if the line is broken, we will reopen it. You can still cross the water after crossing the bridge. A young man from the south shook his head. Haoyu, that's nice, but if the goods are lost, what will we do if the alliance breaks up? The veteran from the North District also hummed. The signal response worked last night, what about today? Zixin blocked the west. Frustration came like a tide, and Haoyu's heart sank. Power allowed him to take the lead, but it also made him a target. Trust is broken and the network is crumbling. He rubbed his temples, and the pain of growing up flashed through his mind. From a small trade to an empire, weaving a web step by step, and now he had to mend it with sincerity. Okay, if you're angry, hit me up. The campfire party will be held tonight. It's not a deal, it's a showdown. Let's speak our minds under the firelight. Whoever leaves, who stays, Haoyu, won't stop you, but the alliance is here, and I am here. As the sun sets, the campfire is blazingly lit, and the crackling sound of firewood is accompanied by the aroma of roasted potatoes, mixed with the faint roar in the night wind. All the tribal representatives came, and Alan's voice was hoarse through the communicator. Haoyu, the battery is stuck. There are many monsters at our edge sentry point, and the signal is as weak as a ghost. You were a hero last night, what do you say today? Haoyu stood up, the firelight reflected his face, and the hot feeling of sweat rolling down his neck woke him up. Alan, last night I led the monster above me, and today the southern line is cut off, I admit it. Zixin, I underestimated him. But this network belongs to everyone. I will repair the filter element and pull it from the southeast inventory. If you don't believe it, I will leave and let Daniel or you take charge. But if it is broken, everyone will die of thirst. Remember, the end of the world is not about hiding, but about joining forces. It's like making dumplings for the new year. The crowd fell silent, and as the fire flickered, the young man from the south lowered his head. Haoyu, you hit the dog to save me last night, today. Okay, I believe it. Give me the fabric, and I will help repair the road. The veteran from the North District clapped his legs. Go ahead. I'll lend you my gun and attack in a surprise attack. Alana's voice softened, the battery is worth it. Haoyu, your sincerity is like fire. Renew the contract, increase the number. Our communicator is upgraded to cover the West. Haoyu felt warm in his heart, and trust was rekindled like ashes. Frustration brought him down, but communication pulled him up. Growth is not about being invincible, it is about standing firm from collapse. After the party ended, Ziqing pulled him, her eyes shining. Haoyu, your confidence has been restored. But you have to fight back. I infiltrated the Zhixing camp. There was a flaw in the raid last night. A new person was an old acquaintance of mine and promised food in exchange for information. Sneak tonight, she by the edge of the puddle. Haoyu nodded, be careful. Expose his weakness, and we will switch to intelligence. The transaction is not just goods, but news. Ziqing smiled and disappeared into the night, walking as light as a cat, leaving only a faint smell of earth in the wind. Early the next morning, Ziqing came back, her face dusty, and she gasped and took out a crumpled note. It's done. There is internal chaos in Zhixing. He monopolized the water source, but after the filter element was lost, the tribe was thirsty, and several deputies were dissatisfied and secretly hid information about the old grain road. The weak point is that there are only 20 soldiers in the West Century. They rely on monster bait to scare people, but they are short of batteries and have intermittent communications. Haoyu, this is a breakthrough. We use intelligence to block his waterway and in turn cut off his pulse. Haoyu's eyes lit up, and his heart changed from frustration. He used to rely on goods to trade, but now he adds information, like flying with 2 wings. The strategy changed, the middle part of the network was stabilized, and the signals of the 5 tribes were fully activated. Okay, Ziqing, you monitor, I'll recycle the technology. Deep in the old city center, there is a rumored lost generator that can be used for communication towers. Xingyan, escort me. Xingyan grabbed the gun and grinned. Haoyu, you were right last night, let's work together to cross the bridge. Let's go, let the ruins sneak in, and I will open the way. They set off and walked around the piles of monster corpses. The rotten stench filled their nostrils, and the harsh echo of claw marks scratching the ground made your heart beat faster. Deeper in the old city center, the shadows of tall buildings are like the mouths of giant beasts, and the air is cool and damp mixed with the musty smell of wires. Xingyan scouted the way forward, and the iron pipe gun tapped the wall with a muffled warning. Haoyu, listen to the buzzing sound, the broken technology area ahead. The mutated rats may be hiding. Haoyu nodded, and the flashlight beam swept across the broken wall. Amid the choking feeling of flying dust, they sneaked into the underground lair. Suddenly, a nest of mutated rats sprang out, their red eyes flashing, and the sharp sound of their claws scraping iron was like a saw pulling a heart. Xingyan swung her gun and knocked back the leader. The bloody heat from the plasma made Haoyu frown. Hold on. The generator is behind. He rushed towards the console, pushed aside the dust, and his fingers touched the cold metal shell. The sparks from the broken lines were dazzling. The rats swarmed in, and Xingyan shouted, Haoyu, pull the line. I'll block it. Her iron pipe danced, and the cracking sound of the rat's leg was mixed with screams, and the salty smell of sweat flying away filled the air. Haoyu gritted his teeth as he connected the wires. The numbness and pain from the current passing through his fingers was like needle pricks, but he was determined in his heart. This was transformation, from businessman to warrior, intelligence plus technology. The network was unbreakable. The generator roared to life, a low hum sounded, the light illuminated the darkness, and the rats dispersed. He carried the small unit on his shoulders, and a wave of heat hit his face. It's done. Xingyan, this thing is a tower, the signal can be extended to 10 kilometers. Zhixing's weak point, our intelligence war has begun. On the way back, Haoyu watched the green light of the crew flashing and thought, after frustration, perseverance is born. In the middle of the stable network, the 5 tribes are like iron plates. Zhixing's shadow is still there, but the fire has been ignited. In the distance, Ziqing's communication call came. Haoyu, new information. Deputy Zhixing is shaken, shall we pull him? Haoyu smiled, pull. Trading starts with people's hearts. As soon as Haoyu finished speaking, Ziqing's laughter came briskly from the communicator, like a wisp of fireworks in the night wind. Haoyu, it's easy to recruit people. The deputy's name is Xiaolu. He used to trade old batteries with me. Now the Zixin tribe is thirsty, and the grain information he has hidden is valuable. Promise him filter elements and batteries, and he will bite the hook. Let's go back to the camp and detail the map. I have already circled the map of the western outpost. Haoyu carried the generator, the heat wave still flowing on his shoulders. The crunch of his footsteps on the gravel was accompanied by Xinyan's gasp. It's done, Haoyu, the machine is stable. The rats have retreated, and our net is like an iron chain, blocking Zixin's small movements. The southeastern camp was in sight, and the residual warmth of the brazier gave off a faint scent of charcoal, mixed with the moist smell of earth, which made the blood of transformation in Haoyu's heart even more intense. Last night's frustration was like a heavy rain. After watering, the soil became soft and new shoots broke through the ground. When they entered, several young people from the south were repairing the wheels of the carts on the southern line. The clang of hammers sounded. The companions looked up amid the flying dust, and their eyes changed from doubt to determination. Haoyu, you are back. Where's the machine? Haoyu nodded and put the generator on the ground. The buzzing was as low as a heartbeat, stable. The signal is extended for 10 kilometers, and the shadow of Zixin in the west cannot be hidden. Ziqing, talk about pulling people in. Ziqing emerged from the tent, holding a crumpled map in her hand, her eyes as bright as a campfire. Xiaolu was shaken. Xian monopolized the water source, and after the filter element burned, the tribe drank muddy water, and the deputies cursed in private. Xiaolu hid an old grain road from the ruins of the sewer to Xian's back warehouse, which can bypass the sentry point and reach the puddle. We deal, he will lead the way while we block his waterway. Xinyan wiped her sweat, and the cloth strip on her arm was still bleeding. The information is good, but it needs a gun. Haoyu, I will lead the escort. After the party last night, we gathered a dozen young people from the south to train and guard the route. As Haoyu listened, the map in his mind came alive. From frustration to counterattack, this is the rhythm of growth, not one person's ambition, but the fist of everyone. He patted Ziqing on the shoulder. Okay, you strengthen the intelligence network, infiltrate Xiaolu tonight, and grant him a seat in the alliance. Xinyan, the escort team is established. Borrow the gun from Daniel, and add signal drills during training. The campfire gathering will become a meeting, not a small talk, but a meeting counterattack with all 5 tribes. Zixin monopolized the stronghold, and we surrounded it. Ziqing nodded, carrying the small bag. Expand the intelligence network, connect the communicator to the sentry point. Haoyu, you are right, the transaction starts with the heart. The afternoon sun shone slantingly, and the campground became lively. Xinyan led the newcomers to practice. The whistling sound of the iron pipe gun was mixed with the trampling of footsteps. Sweat splashed on the ground, and the air was filled with the smell of rust and sweat. Hold on. The monster is coming, aim the gun at the weak point. Xinyan shouted, and a young man from the south hit the target. The crisp sound of sawdust flying made everyone cheer. Haoyu watched from the sidelines, feeling warm in his heart. In the past, he climbed over the ruins alone, but now his team is like a net, and the escort team makes the route as stable as an iron barrel. Ziqing was nestled under the communication tower, the generator was humming, her fingers were quickly connecting the wires, and the signal lights were flashing like stars. West Sentry Point, connect. Xiaolu has written back, bite the hook, see you at the puddle tonight. The setting sun stretched its shadow, and the campfire was lit. This time it was not a casual gathering, but an alliance meeting. The crackling sound of firewood was accompanied by the smell of burning pancakes. Representatives from the 5 tribes sat around. Alan's hoarse voice came out from the communicator. Haoyu, the battery is stable and the signal is bright. But the Zixin waterway cannot be cut off. There are many monsters around us. We must fight back before we die of thirst. The big cow shook his beard and clapped his legs. Do it. Old man 20 soldiers, you won the trust last night, we will go up today. The monopoly stronghold is surrounded by wires, and there are mountains of buckets and filters, but there are few soldiers at the sentry point, and it is scary with torches. Haoyu, the youth representative from the south, nodded. We will build the road with cloth, and we will go around the flanks to block the back door. Haoyu stood up, his face reddened by the firelight, and the heat wave and the choking feeling of smoke made his voice sonorous, luring the enemy, making a clever deal. Ziqing's intelligence, Jixin's deputy Haoyu was shaken. We promised him the filter element and the grain channel seat, and he should cooperate inside and outside. Tomorrow morning, they will push fake trucks, tools from the north and fabrics from the south, with information on low-priced water sources, to lure the new men in to rob. The escort team ambushed both wings. The 5 tribes joined forces to suppress the Shuwa stronghold. It's not personal ambition, it's like killing pigs during the new year, and the whole village is sharing the meat. Haoyu, your network is like an alley in old Beijing. Okay, we'll cover the monsters. Dinyo snorted, don't be soft when the gun fires. After the meeting, Haoyu sat alone by the fire, and his inner monologue was as short as lightning. Ambition gives Jixin a monopoly, and the team lets us light the fire. Growth is not about taking it all to yourself, it is about sharing the fire. Ziqing came closer and whispered, Haoyu has decided to meet at the puddle tomorrow morning. I will sneak in first, and the intelligence network will be fully opened. Xinyan handed over the kettle, and the coolness seeped into the palm of her hand. The escort team is in place. Haoyu, go to sleep. We will start working tomorrow. At dawn the next day, mist filled the ruins. Haoyu led the fake truck and set off. The muffled sound of the wheelbarrow rolling through the wet soil was accompanied by the chirping of birds in the distance. The air was cool and damp, mixed with the musty smell of rotting leaves. Ziqing has sneaked in, and the communication whispers, Haoyu is here, and 5 of Ji Xian's men are following. They are greedy for low-priced water information, and they took the bait. Haoyu nodded, and the cart turned to the edge of the puddle. A faint figure swayed behind the barbed wire. Hey, brothers. The North District tools change the water, and the cloth is added to the filter. Core. Jixin monopoly? Let's grab it. The voice was deliberately louder, like a market hawking, and a dozen Jixin men rushed out, their iron hooks flashing, and their feet splashing in the mud. Haoyu, hand it over. Luring the enemy deeper, Haoyu retreated, pretending to be panicked. Wait, let's talk. Waterway information can save lives. The leader of Jixin's men grinned ferociously, and the wind roared with the hook waving. You're talking nonsense, smash it. Just as they pounced, a flanking ambush was launched. Xinyan's escorts rushed out from the ruins. The muffled sound of iron pipe guns being smashed was mixed with screams. The young people from the south blocked the back door, and the sound of cutting the bypass wire was as sharp as a saw. The gunfire of veteran Dainyu, and the scream of bullets wiping through the air made the enemies flee, surrounded. Don't run. Alan's communication alarm, the monster is in the east, no problem. Haoyu opened the door from the inside, and the puddle stronghold was exposed. Haoyu led people to rush in. With the splashing sound of stepping on the bucket, a mountain of filter elements and grains were piled up, and his tentacles were cold and slippery. A melee broke out, and there were about 20 of Ji Xian's men. The clanging iron hooks hit the guards' gun barrels, and the smell of blood mixed with the stench of sweat filled the air. Xinyan opened the way in front and was hit by a hook. The pain from the slight injury to her arm was like fire, but she shouted, Haoyu, behind the warehouse. Cut the water pipe. Haoyu threw himself at the control lever, his fingers clenching the roughness of the rusty metal, and his heart was determined. Team victory, this is the fire. Ziqing threw smoke bombs from the dark, the gray mist hit the nostrils and choked people, and the enemy coughed and became a mess. The powerful gunmen pressed forward and blocked the road with bullets. Retreat. Our stronghold is ours. The signal from Jixin's camp in the distance jumped wildly. He himself did not show up, but his deputy collapsed. Haoyu opened the water pipe, and the roar of the flood flooded the sentry point, taking away all the resources. Haoyu picked up the filter box and shouted enthusiastically, purchase the goods. The Alliance wins. Everyone retreated, the cart was fully loaded, and the splashing of water on the wheels was accompanied by the laughter of victory. On the way back, Haoyu looked at his partners, and hope surged in his heart. From businessmen to alliance leaders, personal ambitions were broken, and team strength ignited the fire of survival. Ziqing gasped, "The intelligence network is stable, but the civil strife in Jixin is intensifying. Next step, recruit more deputies?" Haoyu nodded, and a campfire loomed in the distance. Pull. The fire spreads, and the new order begins. The campground cheers, resources are distributed like a festival, filters are replaced with smiling faces, and water sources are shared to warm hearts. But Haoyu knew that Jixin would not stop. As the network expanded, a storm was brewing. The cheers in the camp are still echoing, like the aftershock of exploding New Year firecrackers. Filters and buckets are piled into a hill, and friends are passing them around the distribution point laughing and laughing. Haoyu wiped the sweat from his forehead. The smell of earth and blood was still lingering on his clothes. The air was filled with the aroma of roasted meat and the freshness of wet earth. He watched Shaoli, a young man from the south, take a bucket of filter water, his eyes as bright as a campfire. "Haoyu, this water is sweet. The alliance is stable, Jixin should cry." The veteran patted Haoyu on the shoulder, his beard trembling, and his voice was as rough as sandpaper grinding iron. "The sound of the gun is great, the stronghold is over, what's the next step to bring all his deputies over?" Haoyu nodded, the blood in his heart was still surging. Victory is not the end, but the beginning of the spread of fire. Ziqing ran from the communication tower, holding a wrinkled map in her hand. The sweat rolled down her face, leaving traces mixed with dust. "Haoyu, celebrate, the signal in the west is messed up." Xiaolu said there was civil unrest in Jixin, and the deputies were clamoring for water, but the monster was nowhere to be found. Moved not sporadic, but a group. The intelligence network picked up old radio fragments, followed by the big guys, and there were hundreds of mutant beasts deep in the ruins, swarming towards the puddle. Her words were like a splash of cold water, and the cheers stopped suddenly, and everyone's expressions darkened. The wound on Xinyan's arm was still aching. She clenched the iron pipe gun and said in a firm voice, "Monster? The rat swarm was enough last time, but this time it's a big one? The escort team needs to be upgraded, so that the gun barrel can't stun that thing." The map in Haoyu's mind instantly overlapped. The puddle stronghold is over, resources are pulled back, but monsters are like a tide, and they will rush straight into the trading route and cut off the lifeblood of the alliance. Night fell quickly, and the campfire was rekindled. This time the fire flickered more rapidly, and the crackling sound of wood was accompanied by a deep roar in the distance, like thunder rolling across the ground. Haoyu summoned representatives from the 5 tribes. The smoke in the air was choking, mixed with the bitter smell of burnt wood, making people's throats tight. "The invasion of monsters is not a coincidence," Haoyu said, his outline reflected in the firelight, and his voice was as steady as a rock. "Jixin was in civil strife, the water source was cut off, and monsters came. Our network has expanded to 8 tribes, and we must first secure the route. Ziqing, what does the intelligence say?" Ziqing unfolded the map and traced the wrinkled lines with her fingers. Eyes narrowed into slits. "Predicted migration route, Southeast Highland, old factory area. There are rail debris to block the tide of beasts. The old sewer to the north of the puddle leads there. Avoid low-lying areas. Monsters have weak sight, torches and smoke can drag them, but they have to move quickly. Haoyu, we don't have enough weapons. Iron pipe guns can hold small monsters, big monsters need to be upgraded." An internal dispute broke out, and Alan yelled hoarsely from the communicator, "Migrate? The battery is stable, and there are more monsters in the factory area. We veterans in the Northern District are not afraid of being beaten, but what should we do if the wheels get stuck when pulling a truck over the railroad tracks?" Shaoli from the south slapped the table, and the wooden table shook the brazier. "Haoyu, you said the team is united, but now the monsters are threatening the network. Why don't you fight back first? Migrate. Lost the route, whose signal is covering it?" Daniel snorted and the gun barrel clanged on the ground. The veteran agreed to fight, but Ziqing's map was correct last time, and we can't afford to lose this time. The air was as tight as a bowstring, and the faces of the people were uncertain under the firelight. The salty smell of sweat mixed with the smoke, making Haoyu's heart sink. The cracks after victory were worse than the monsters. Haoyu stood up, the heat wave hit his face. He took a deep breath, and the smoke entered his lungs like needles. Listen, fighting is not a bad thing, it is tempered by fire. Alan, the battery is connected to the old factory generator, and the signal upgrade covers the migration. Shaoli, the route cannot be lost. Trading for weapons, first stabilize the net. He turned to Ziqing and whispered, bring the blacksmith of the North District, replace the old barrel with a spring and upgrade it, and allow him to join forces with the filter element. Ziqing nodded, shouldered his bag and dived into the night. The sound of gravel stepping on his feet gradually faded away. Haoyu thought briefly in his heart, from a trader to a guardian, he is not selling goods, but protecting fire. Monsters threaten the net, and he must use business to adapt to the apocalypse and switch from defense to offense. Early the next morning, the fog was as thick as cotton wool, and the roaring sound in the distance was closer, like a frenzy of beasts roaring together. Haoyu led the team to push the truck towards the North District. The muffled sound of the wheels rolling through the wet mud was accompanied by the fluttering of birds. The cool and damp air mixed with the smell of rotten meat made people's stomachs churn. Ziqing has returned, bringing with him the blacksmith Lao Wang, a strong man with a greasy beard, holding an upgraded gun barrel in his hand, the spring flashing cold light. Haoyu, the deal is done. I exchanged the old filter element for 3 boxes of spring guns, and the big beast's weak point, the eyes and joint. Over at Jixin, Xiaolu sent a message, he will retreat temporarily and let the monster bite your net first. Haoyu clenched the barrel of the gun, the metal was cold to his bones, but his blood was boiling. Okay, the weapons will be upgraded. Ziqing, the migration route will be detailed. Ziqing pointed on the map, her voice as fast as the wind, start from the north sewer of Shuihua, go around the old railway track, and avoid the main tide of monsters. Prediction, the herd will chase the water and reach the southeast within 2 hours. We will pull the torches on the flanks and move the trucks first to move resources. 8 Tribe Alliance. Last night, I pulled 2 small tribes in the east to exchange information for food. They boarded the boat-shaped vehicle to block the monster's retreat. Haoyu clicked. Head, turned around and shouted to everyone, move. Xinyan, the vanguard of the escort, the barrel of the gun is aimed at the weak point. Shaoli, the young man from the south is flanking the torch. Alan signals the position, and the big bull is in charge. The tide of monsters came fiercely, and the ground on the edge of the ruins trembled, roaring like thunder, and mutant beasts sprang out, deformed wolves and giant rats, and the harsh sound of claws scraping rocks was accompanied by the fishy wind. The first wave hit the escort, and the barrel of Xinyan's gun hit a wolf in the eye. The hot smell of blood spatter filled the air. The old wound on her arm cracked open. The pain was like fire, but she shouted, hold it. The weak spot is accurate. The young man from the south waved his torch, and the flames burned the beast's fur and the scorched smell spread through the nose, dragging the flanks. Shaoli gasped, Haoyu, the big guy at the head of the tide, the size of 10 cows. Haoyu rushed forward with his gun, the spring clicked, the bullet squeaked through the air, and hit the joints, causing the giant beast to kneel, and the soil splashed with a wet and sticky touch. He was determined in his heart, guardianship is not a transaction, it is lifeblood. The turning point came quickly, and Ziqing reported urgently, Haoyu, there is something strange behind the monster. Jixin's men have mixed into the beast tide, and the iron hook flashes. His temporary retreat is false, and he plans to use the beast to cut off the network. Haoyu's heart was frightened, and he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the roar of the monster. Xiaolio's information was not entirely accurate, and Jixin's conspiracy was deep. Just when the giant beasts were coming, the veteran Dainyu suppressed them with gunshots and blocked the road with bullets. Haoyu, move the route. We block it. Haoyu shouted, Alliance, torch pulling. New partners from the 8 tribes rushed out from the east, boat-shaped vehicles rammed the herd of beasts, the crunching sound of wooden wheels crushing bones was mixed with miserable howls, and the resource vehicles retreated first. After Haoyu cut it off himself, the barrel of the gun was hot and sweat mixed with blood slipped down, from a seller to a leader, business became a guardian, and the network expanded. He witnessed the growth. During the migration, there are multiple layers of crises. The wreckage of the railroad tracks and the truck wheels, Haoyu pushed together. The rough feeling of rust was accompanied by gasping, "Haoyu, it's stuck." Ziqing threw a smoke bomb, the gray fog choked the cover, and the monster lost its way and hit the wall with a muffled sound that shook the ground. Zixin's men made a surprise attack, and the wind roared with the hook swinging. Haoyu's trading wisdom flashed, "Stop. Change the filter element and bring them into the alliance." A deputy from Zixin hesitated and lowered the hook. "The water source is cut off. Monsters are biting the tribe. Haoyu, your net is stable?" Haoyu threw the bucket, and the splash of cold water on the ground resolved the murderous intention. "Stable. Join, share the relocation route." The deputy nodded, and the civil strife intensified Zixin's plan. The factory area was finally near. The old iron door creaked open, and the remaining generator inside hummed like a heartbeat. The tide of monsters was restrained by torches and guns, and gradually retreated to the low-lying area in the southeast, their roars receding into the distance. Haoyu gasped and leaned against the wall, a warm current welling up in his heart. During the crisis, the network expanded to 8 tribes. From trading to protecting, he changed. Sinyan bandaged the wound and smiled. "Haoyu, upgrade weapons to save lives." Zixin secretly plots. "We have to be prepared." Ziqing put away the map, moving successfully. The intelligence network is connected to the factory signal. The next step to counterattack? Haoyu looked at everyone. The fire loomed in the new camp. Be prepared. Alliance fire, burn the conspiracy. Beside the campfire, it was late at night, and representatives of the 8 tribes sat around. The warmth of the firewood hit their faces, and the aroma of roasted grains relieved fatigue. The internal dispute was resolved, and Alan raised the pot. "Haoyu, the migration is stable, the monsters retreat, and the net is iron." But Haoyu knew that Zixin's secret plan was not over. The storm was looming, and the road to survival was still long. The embers of the campfire were still crackling, and representatives of the 8 tribes sat in a circle, passing wild fruit wine in pots. The sweet and sour smell mixed with the smoke made the night wind bring a little warmth. Alan's laughter echoed rudely, and he patted Daniel on the shoulder. "Haoyu, the migration is stable, and the monsters can't help but stare. Next time at the party, we have to add a dish: roasted animal legs to celebrate." Shaoli from the south took the wine bottle, took a sip, and wiped his mouth. "Yes, the net is iron, and that old fox Zixin is probably hiding in the hole to sulk." Haoyu smiled, the firelight reflected on his face, but he couldn't hide the vigilance in his eyes. He whispered to Ziqing, "The intelligence network is still watching him?" One of the deputies pulled over. "The civil strife is about to explode." Ziqing nodded, her thin figure swaying by the fire, the communicator in her hand flashing a faint green light. Looking at it, Shaolu sneaked in last night, saying that Xian was furious and summoned the remaining soldiers to counterattack. But the monster tide has just receded, and he has very few resources, so he will just jump over the wall. As soon as he finished speaking, Ziqing's communicator suddenly buzzed, like a honeycomb being poked. Her expression changed, and she listened close to her ear for a few seconds, then stood up suddenly. "Haoyu, it's not good." Shaolu intercepted the radio. Zixin was exposed. He didn't retreat temporarily, but took advantage of the monster's cover to send people to burn the railway tracks in the North District to cut off our relocation route. Now, he led 3 remnants of the tribe and went straight to the southeast campfire gathering, bringing iron hooks and kerosene to the alliance. The air solidified instantly, and the flames seemed to be half shorter. Alan's wine bottle hit the ground, splashing the wet smell of earth. "Betrayal? I've always disliked him." "Haoyu, escort?" Sinyan had already tightened her grip on the barrel of the gun, ignoring the faint pain in the wound. The iron pipe shone coldly in the firelight. "The conflict is coming. Haoyu, the monster is still wandering around the edge. He is taking advantage of the fire, and the net is about to collapse." Haoyu's heart sank, and the map in his mind turned rapidly. Zixin's move was cruel, burning the railroad tracks and cutting off the back roads, and the gathering became a target. The alliance had just expanded to 8 tribes, and the internal members were not fully integrated yet, so they would fall apart in chaos. In the distance, a low roar could be heard faintly from the ruins, like a monster laughing at the infighting of humans. He took a deep breath, and the smoke filled his lungs with the bitterness of burnt wood. Don't panic, this is a test of fire. Ziqing, please tell me in detail their number, route. Ziqing's fingers quickly crossed the communicator, and her voice was as fast as the wind. Number 20, the front of the Iron Hook team, and the heel of the kerosene team. Detour from the old sewer to the west and reach the campfire area in half an hour. The deputy was in chaos, the two were shaken. Zixin suppressed it, but Haoyu it can penetrate. Haoyu nodded and turned to the crowd, his voice as solid as a rock. If the party doesn't break up, it will turn into a trap. Xinyan, lead the escort to ambush the Iron Hook's weak point, break the joint. Ziqing, pull Haoyu and shake the deputy, use the intelligence to feed the smoke bomb. Don't let the monsters join in the fun. The crowd dispersed, the soft sounds of footsteps stepping on the gravel blended into one, and the figures in the night were like ghosts. A brief flash occurred in Haoyu's heart. Betrayal is like a knife. From trading loyalty to protecting people's hearts, he had to weave a strong web to turn crisis into opportunity. Xinyan patted him on the shoulder and whispered, Haoyu, I will lead the attack. If monsters come, I will block the first wave. Her eyes were as bright as stars in the firelight, and there was a tacit understanding in her tenacity. Haoyu held her hand tightly, and the coldness of the metal barrel conveyed his determination. It's done. The alliance is not about selling goods, it is the lifeblood. Half an hour passed in a blink of an eye. Outside the campfire area, the howling wind mixed with the harsh sound of iron hooks scraping the ground. Zixin's leading team rushed out of the sewer. The torch was swaying, and the strong man in the lead swung his hook and shouted, Burn Haoyu's net. Get the water source and filter element back. The kerosene barrels rolled behind them, and the smell of oil hit their nostrils, making the air sticky. Haoyu hid behind the iron door, observing through the gap, his heart beating like a drum. Number 20, the equipment is miscellaneous but ruthless. Zixin himself did not show up, so he is probably behind. A whisper came from Ziqing's communication, Haoyu, Haoyu is in. He said that Zixin's deputy, Lao Zhang, was shaken and promised him an alliance with the water source, so he could turn against the water. The smoke bomb is in place. The conflict broke out violently. The leading hook team ran into an ambush. Xinyan led the escort team to attack from the flank. The gun barrel made a clanging sound, breaking the joint of a hook. Sparks flew and screamed, ah! Haoyu's bitch! Xinyan turned over and jumped up, the iron pipe whistling. The whistle flew through the air and hit another man's knee. The crisp sound of bone cracking mixed with the splash of soil. Dog legs? We are the net. Surrender, the filter element changes your life. The battle was in full swing, the sound of the wind waving the iron hook mixed with the sound of gunshots, and the smell of blood filled the air. Shaoli's torch array in the south lit up, and the flames crackled and burned, restraining the monsters wandering around the edge. A few wolf beasts roared and rushed towards them, the harshness of their claws scraping against the stone was frightening, but as soon as the firelight flashed, they retreated, and their hair was scorched and smelly. Zixin's rear team poured oil on them, and the oil barrels rolled to the ground. The moment the torch was lit, the flame shot up 3 meters high, and the heat wave hit his face like a knife. Haoyu shouted, Smoke! Ziqing, come on! Ziqing threw the smoke bomb, and the gray mist exploded, choking like pepper water, mixed with the burnt smell of kerosene, making Zixin's men cough repeatedly and blurred their vision. Cooperating inside and outside, Haoyu and 2 shaken deputies rushed out from inside, and Lao Zhang slashed at his own men with a knife. Zixin, that's enough. Monsters bite the tribe, the water source is cut off, Haoyu's net is stable, join in. During the melee, the deputies turned against each other, and the iron hooks fell to the ground with a clang, and they turned to suppress the remnants of Zixin. Haoyu rushed out of the iron door. The barrel of the gun was aimed at a weak point in the hook hand. The spring clicked and activated. The bullets sneered through the air and hit the joints, making him kneel. Stop, Xixin wants to monopolize, but he digs his own grave. Filter elements, buckets, intelligence, the alliance is sharing, who is stupid with whom? The battle situation reversed quickly, screams arose in the smoke, Xian's men collapsed, and the kerosene burned out, leaving only black smoke. Xinyan panted and dragged back a prisoner, with new blood marks on her arms and sweat staining her face. Haoyu, 5 of them were captured, including Lao Zhang. They said Xixin personally led the number 10 elites from the north and arrived in half a quarter of an hour. Haoyu nodded, and there was a surge of heat in his heart. The risk of betrayal was always with him, but strategic alliances shined brightly. From trading to attract people to weaving a web of people's hearts, he grew up and was no longer a businessman fighting alone. Ziqing ran over, the communicator still buzzing. Haoyu, the intelligence has been upgraded. Xixin's signal is locked. He wants to burn the campfire and break the hearts of the 8 tribes. But Lao Zhang rebelled and gave him the road map. We set up an ambush. Haoyu summoned everyone, and with the swaying firelight, his voice was sonorous, one last stand. Xinyan, the forwards block the north road, and the gun barrels seal the joints. Shaoli, the torch smoke contains the monsters and the back road. Lao Zhang, you bring your deputy to disguise, shout surrender inside, and pull Xixin into the trench. Lao Zhang nodded, holding the bucket tightly in his rough hands, with a new look in his eyes. Haoyu, the deal is done. Xixin's ambition is to destroy the tribe, let's follow the net. The crowd started to move, the sound of splashing on the mud was accompanied by the night wind, and the shadow of the ruins stretched like a knife. Xixin arrived in person, the silhouette of the north road shook, number 10's elite iron hook flashed, the leader's face was twisted, and his voice was as hoarse as a wolf howling. Haoyu, you rob me of resources, burn my stronghold, network? What a joke, they will all be burned tonight. He waved his hand and poured kerosene on the campfire area, and the flames turned into heat waves. But Lao Zhang pretended to surrender and shouted, Boss, the monster is coming, Haoyu's net is stable, let's cast it. Xixin was stunned, the hook dropped slightly, Ziqing's smoke bomb exploded, and the gray mist swallowed his sight. Xinyan led the attack, and the escort's gun barrels were smashed together, with crisp sounds of broken joints and hot blood spraying. Haoyu personally faced Xixin, his gun barrel blocked the clang of the iron hook, and sparks flew out and burned his hands. Xixin, Monopoly? In the doomsday, all alone will starve to death. Alliance sharing, the fire will burn brightly. Xixin roared and rushed towards him, the hook cut through the air and the wind roared, but he was tripped from behind by Lao Zhang. The deputies pressed on him, and the sound of the rope tightening was heard. The monsters rushed out from the edge, roaring like thunder, and their claws fluttered and trembled. But Shaoli waved the torch array, the flames crackled and burned the animal hair, and the burning smell forced the tide to subside. The veteran Dainyu suppressed the gunshots and blocked the road with bullets. Haoyu, the net is iron. The monster retreats. Xixin was captured, kneeling down and gasping, with red eyes. Haoyu, you won this time, but the struggle for power will never end. Haoyu looked at him, his heart was as calm as water. Betrayal has taught him a lot, from a smart businessman to the foundation of an empire. He understands the risks. The net is not only a transaction, but also a fortress of people's hearts. Turning to Lao Zhang and other prisoners, join, and the filter element will be exchanged for loyalty. The 8 tribes will be expanded to 9, intelligence will be shared, and monster threats will be blocked together. Late at night, the campfire was rekindled, and representatives of the 9 tribes sat around. The aroma of barbecue soothed the blood, and laughter gradually began as the wine pot was passed around. Lao Zhang raised the pot. Haoyu, it's worth switching sides. Xixin's conspiracy is broken, and the net is like an iron chain. Xinyan bandaged the wound and smiled. The raid is great, the escort team has been upgraded, how about more in the next step? Ziqing spread out the map, the intelligence network connects Xi's new and old posts, and the resource circulation doubles. Haoyu nodded, his face was red with firelight, and the heat wave hit his face. He knew that the foundation of the empire was stable, but he also felt the aftermath of the storm, a greater challenge, hidden deep in the ruins, the fire of survival, burning towards dawn. The embers of the campfire are still whispering, and the grease of the barbecue drips into the fire, sizzling, exuding the warmth of burnt aroma mixed with weeds, letting the air that has just experienced a bloody battle slowly relax. The representatives of the 9 tribes sat closer together. As the wine bottles were passed around, laughter was like the gentle breeze in the night, diluting the sonorous echo of the broken iron hook. Lao Zhang's strong body was leaning against a piece of gravel, holding up an empty bowl, and shouted in a rough voice, "Haoyu, this pot of wine is for you." That bastard Jixin thought that he could overturn the situation by burning the rails and cutting off the network, but he failed. "Our old department, it's worth it to change the filter element to the water source." The 2 deputies beside them nodded like garlic. Their faces were still dirty, but their eyes were bright. Yes, the boss is ambitious, and the monster bites the edge. He also wants to monopolize and starve his own people. Now, the net is pulling us, and the southeast campfire is stable. Haoyu smiled, and the firelight reflected on his face, elongating the outline. He took the wine bottle and took a sip of the sour juice. As his throat rolled, the melee just now flashed through his mind: the smoke that stung his nose, the harsh sound of the hook scraping the ground, and Jixin's red eyes when he knelt down. At that moment, he was no longer a mere businessman, but the heart of the network, weaving people's hearts together with every beat. Turning to Lao Zhang, he whispered, "Whether it's worth it depends on the action. There are 3 old and new outposts in Jixin. The resources are thin but the location is good. The railway track in the north is burned. Let's repair it and connect it into a hub. Intelligence, water sources, and filter elements are all shared. Tomorrow, send people to control the 3 tribes of Na. 9 will become 12, and the network will be expanded." Ziqing squatted by the fire, her thin fingers scratching on the old map, and the green light of the communicator flickered like a firefly. She raised her head, her eyes narrowed, and she said with a clever energy in her excitement, "Haoyu, it's done. I locked the old and new sentry signals last night." Xiaolu penetrated in and intercepted their radio. After the monster tide receded, the remnant wolf beast in the North District was still wandering around, biting off 2 supply lines. But they have old technology warehouses, solar panels and wireless chargers, which are perfect for track repair. I optimized the intelligence system to connect to these sentinel points, and the resource map was updated in real time. When recruiting, I sent out smoke signals to avoid fighting again. Sinyan finished bandaging her arm at the side, and the new blood stains faintly seeped through the red cloth strips. She shook the iron pipe and made a soft sound, with a smile on her lips. "The information is good, the army must keep up. The escort team made a surprise attack last night and broke a dozen hooks, but the monsters roared from the edge, and the remaining ones had to be blocked. Haoyu, I will lead the training of the joint army. From the 9 tribes pull strong men and teach weak points to attack. The gun barrel seals the joints, and the torches are used to contain the beast tide. The southeastern campfire is used as a hub, and the wall is reinforced. The monsters are coming." She patted Lao Zhang on the shoulder, which made him groan. "Brother, your old team has iron hooks, and they will be upgraded to defensive hooks. We will start working next to the ruins of the training ground." Lao Zhang rubbed his shoulders and laughed. His figure in the smoke was as strong as a bear. "Okay. Jixin taught us raids back then. Now we have changed to guard against monsters, and the filter element has been changed for training. Stable. Haoyu, once this hub is built, the tribe will not disperse, and the monsters will bite their teeth." Shaoli from the south handed over a piece of barbecue, and the oil dripped into the fire, and the aroma was fragrant. He chewed the meat and said, "Yes, the migration has stabilized, the rails have been repaired, trucks are rolling, and the flow of resources has doubled. Alan, you are from the North District, attract people at the outpost, at the wine belt, and at the campfire party." Alan nodded, and his rude laughter echoed, "Hey! Monsters are wandering, let's upgrade the torch array, burn their hair and make them stink, stay away." As the night deepened and everyone dispersed, the soft sound of footsteps on gravel mixed with the sound of wind. Haoyu stood alone by the campfire, with the heat wave hitting his face and the smoke filling his face. His heart surged, From the days of searching for filter elements in the ruins to the prototype of the Empire weaving webs to attract allies, this step is not luck, but the fire of people's hearts and strategies. Xixin's betrayal is like a mirror, reflecting the dangers, but he has transformed, no longer timid, but a leader in creating a new order. Turning around, he whispered to Ziqing, "Intelligence optimization, priority is given to the northern area. The monsters remain, and the map is marked red." Daybreak comes quickly, and the morning mist in the ruins is as cold as dew, mixed with the fishy smell of earth, which makes people feel refreshed. Haoyu led the team to set off. The trucks roared over the charred rails, and the crunching sound of wheels crushing broken iron was heard. Ziqing was riding an old motorcycle in front, the engine growling like a cough. She turned around and shouted, "Haoyu, 2 kilometers from the first sentry point, Sixinjiu Department number 20 is shaking." Xiaolu said that their water source was cut off, monsters killed 2 of them, and they are in urgent need of filters. Haoyu nodded, held the steering wheel tightly, and the coldness of the metal conveyed determination. "The deal opens the way." Xinyan, the escort team dispersed, and the torches are on standby. When we arrived at the sentinel point, the high walls of the ruins were in ruins, the barbed wire fence was hung with monster claw marks, and the blood was dried and black. The leading strong man named Tinia held a rusty iron hook and his eyes were as alert as a wolf. "Haoyu? Xixin is trapped, what are you doing here? To pull people in with a net, or to rob?" Haoyu got out of the car, raised a box of filter elements, blue light flashed in the sun, "To attract alliances, not to rob. Xixin burns the track and cuts off your retreat, monsters roam. Let's build the rails and connect the hubs. The water source is shared, and the information is shared. Join, and the filter element will be exchanged for loyalty." Tinia hesitated and touched the hook. The roar of the wind through the cracks in the wall made him frown. "The monster roared last night, chewing up the supplies, and we have few resources. Okay, let's try the campfire party." Ziqing came closer, her communicator buzzed, and her fingers flew quickly. "Tinu, the intelligence has been upgraded. There is a solar energy warehouse in the northeast, the monster tide has receded, and it is safe. Let's optimize the system and monitor the herd in real time to avoid blind collisions." Tinu's eyes lit up. The strong men whispered, and the iron hook clanged to the ground. "It's done. 12 tribes, the net is iron." Haoyu's heart moved slightly, a deal, pulling people's hearts, from the survival of a single tribe to a cross-regional network. This growth is like fire, burning order. At noon, hub construction was in full swing. The southeastern campfire area transformed into the center, the old warehouse was being cleaned, sparks were flying from the welded iron walls, and the whooshing sound of the welding gun mixed with the smell of sweat made the air hot. Under Haoyu's supervision, the truck unloaded the remaining technology, the solar panels were rolled out, humming and charging, and the radio tower was erected, towering like a sentinel. Alan was sweating profusely and shouted in a rough voice, "Haoyu, this Talian North District has fast resource circulation. The monsters are coming, the signal flashes, the joint troops are coming." Xinyan was at the training ground nearby, the joint troops were lined up, iron pipes and guns were firing, teaching weak points to attack. "Look, the monster's joints are brittle, break its legs. The torch is waving, it's burning and smelly, retreat." The recruits followed the drill, splashing with sweat and panting with laughter. "Sister Xian, the guard is strong, the monster bites the edge, let's block it." In Ziqing's intelligence tent, the map projection flickered, and she reported to Haoyu, her voice as fast as the wind, "Haoyu, the optimization is complete. Xixin and Old Century Companies, 13 Tribes Intelligence Network, resource points are marked green, and water source filters are streaming in real time. The monster remnants are wandering in the west, roaring and monitoring, the joint army is warning smoke, and the inside and outside should be coordinated." Haoyu nodded and patted her on the shoulder, "Well done. Commercial survival is not just about selling goods, but also the skeleton of order. Reshape technology, and the campfire will never be extinguished." In the afternoon, the monster attacked suddenly. The ruins in the west roared like thunder, and 5 remnant wolf beasts sprang out. their claws scraped against the stone and their hair was dirty and bloody. The sentry shouted, "Monsters! Unite!" Xinyan led the troops and rushed out, the torch array lit up, the flames crackled in the sky, and the heat wave forced the beast's head back. Her iron pipe whizzed, hitting a joint, and the bones cracked and screamed, "Block! The weak point is sealed, the gun barrel is ready." Lao Zhang used the old iron hook to defend, hooked the animal's leg and pulled. The friction of the rope generated heat. "Haoyu, the net is stable. The monster bites, let's pull it off." Ziching threw the smoke bomb, the gray mist choked the beasts and roared, causing the beasts to hit the wall randomly, and the claw marks were deep on the iron plate. Haoyu personally went into battle, aiming the barrel at the animal's eye. The bullets screeched and wiped the air. Hitting one of the animals caused it to roll over, and hot plasma sprayed on the ground. The battle was short and fierce, and the monsters retreated, leaving behind the smell of burnt hair and claw marks on the ground. Everyone gasped and gathered around. Xinyan wiped her sweat and smiled, "The training is working. The combined army is upgraded to fight against the remnants, the hub iron." Tinia raised his hook. "Haoyu, the signal of this technology tower is ringing, and the monsters can stop it in time. 13 tribes, expand." As the sun sets, the campfire is reunited, and representatives of the 14 tribes arrive. The fire is swaying, the aroma of barbecue fills the air, and the wine pot spreads laughter. Haoyu stood up, his voice as steady as a railroad track. "Brothers, in the ruins of doomsday, monsters bite the shadows, but the network connects the hearts. From the beginning of the filter element trade to the construction of the central hub, technology has reshaped the order. Solar energy lights campfires, intelligence networks block the tide of beasts, and the joint army defends the homeland. This is not survival, but a new fire, burning towards the dawn. Sharing resources, people's hearts will not be separated, and the struggle for power ends with the alliance." Everyone raised their bowls and cheered like waves. "Haoyu! The network empire, the fire will burn forever." Lao Zhang slapped the table, "The vision has come true. Old and new hatreds have turned into iron chains." Ziching spread out the map, "The intelligence has been optimized, the 15 tribes are in sight, and the resource intelligence of the western region is here." The night was as thick as ink, and the remaining flames of the campfire trembled in the wind, making tiny crackling sounds, mixed with the low hum of the ruins in the distance, sending a faint chill down Haoyu's spine. He waved his hand to dismiss the crowd, and the rustle of his footsteps on the scorched earth echoed in his ears. The vigilance in his mind was like the claws of a beast, gently scratching his heart. The cheers of the 14 tribes were still echoing in his ears, but he knew that the end of the world never gave a breather, and the fire burned brightly, which often led to greater storms. Ziching followed him, the green light of the communicator reflected on her thin face. She whispered, "Haoyu, the signal in the West District is messed up." Xiaolu intercepted the radio. Jixin sighed, "He is not completely dead." Haoyu stopped, turned around and grabbed her arm. The smell of metal beside the railway track mixed with the cold dew of night hit his nose. "Let me be clear. The old department has roped in, but where are the others?" Ziching took a breath, her eyes narrowed into slits, and there was a rush in excitement. After the scuffle last night, he was tied to the hub warehouse and locked with iron chains. But this morning when the patrol was changing, the guard found that the iron hook was empty. The iron hook was used to pick the lock, stained with blood, as if he had escaped on his own. The signal showed that he ran to the west area and contacted a tribe called Iron Fang. They were an external force that monopolized the old arsenal in the west. After the monster tide receded, they had great ambitions. Jixin promised them intelligence and would help them to attack the hub. The remaining monsters were lured into them as cannon fodder, and the low roar was approaching. Haoyu's fists were clenched and his knuckles turned white. The coolness of the wind blowing over his cheeks reminded him of Jixin's red eyes when he knelt down. That guy, whose ambition is like a virus, is always turning over in the gutter. He took a deep breath, and the smell of earth rushed into his nose. Mobilize the entire network. Call the representatives, reunite at the campfire, and trade diplomacy first. Xinyan, the escort team is on guard, the joint army disperses, and the western wall is reinforced. Zicheng, you infiltrate the signal and dig out the roots of the conspiracy. Xingyan sprang out from the darkness, the iron pipe with a soft sound. She wiped her sweat and said in a sonorous voice, "Haoyu, it's done. The monster is roaring and approaching. I will lead the team to block the first wave. The torch array trained by the Joint Army will burn them to death." She turned around and shouted, and the whistle pierced the night sky. "Guards, prepare the barrel, light the torch." The hub instantly boiled. The truck's engine roared to life, the crunching sound of tires crushing gravel mixed with the soldiers' breathing. The torches lit up like stars, and the heat wave hit the face mixed with the aroma of burnt rosin. Haoyu rushed into the intelligence tent, and the map projection flickered, with red dots marking the edge of the West District like blood beads. Representatives of the 14 tribes arrived one after another. Lao Zhang gasped and rushed into the door, blocking half of the door frame with his strong body. "Haoyu, what? Xixin bitches again?" The old tribe pulled, but he escaped. Taya's gang of wolves, how cruel their guns are. Alan followed, with a rude laugh mixed with anger. "I heard that Taya's leader Tai Lang in the West District is like a dog." Haoyu stood up straight, his voice as steady as a railway track. "Brothers, the crisis is coming, but the network is not broken. Outside the Xixin alliance, monsters are the vanguard, but they are not monolithic internally. The transaction diplomacy collapsed. Lao Zhang, your old department has iron hooks, connected with the sentry points on the edge of the iron teeth, and promised to exchange the filter element for neutrality. The water source is shared, the intelligence is communicated, they monopolize resources, and they are hungry early. Alan, North District Liquor Belt, go to the campfire to persuade the Taya tribe to resell Xian's information. Zicheng, optimize the signal, intercept their communications, and expose the conspiracy." Everyone nodded, and the wine pot clanged to the ground. Lao Zhang patted his chest. "Okay. The filter element is valuable, and the deal is open to him. Let's get him to switch sides." Zicheng's fingers were flying on the communicator, and the green light made her face pale. She suddenly whispered, "Haoyu, intercepted. Xixin radio." He promised Taya the entire Western District arsenal in exchange for their help in destroying the hub. But there is a hidden conspiracy. Taya is internally divided, and Tai Lang is ambitious and wants to devour Xixin's information and then monopolize resources. Xian also has a backup plan. The monster wave is not a remnant, but a mutated wolf beast they released from the old laboratory. It has poisonous claws and will go crazy after one bite. Taya didn't know it and thought it was an ordinary beast. Haoyu's eyes lit up, and his heart surged like a tide. This conspiracy is like a spider web, layered on top, but the trading wisdom is like scissors, which can be cut off at the root. He whispered, "Okay, reveal the secret and send out smoke." Zicheng, the broadcast is intercepted, Deputy Taya will listen first. Diplomacy and intelligence will disintegrate their alliance. The night wind howled, the roar outside the west wall was like thunder, monsters were everywhere, and the harsh sound of claws scraping against iron plates made people's hearts beat faster. Xingyan led the combined army to rush out. The torch array was like a long dragon, the flames crackled and burned into the sky, and the heat wave drove back the forward herd. Her iron pipe whizzed, hitting the joints of a mutated wolf. The bones cracked and screamed, "Block! The weak point is sealed, and the gun barrels are fired. These beasts are poisonous and will burn their hair, so don't get close." The soldiers followed, and the gunshots screamed through the air. The stench of the bullets grazing the beasts' fur filled the air. The hot blood splashed on the ground, and the fishy smell mixed with the earth made people's stomachs churn. Lao Zhang pulled the old iron hook, and the hook was embedded in the animal's leg. The friction of the rope caused heat and broke the muscles and bones. "Haoyu, be diplomatic. The monster bites like crazy, and the hub wall shakes." Tina roared, "Unite firmly, burn their poisonous claws black." At the same time, Haoyu personally took action and rode a truck to the sentry point on the edge of the iron tooth. The crunch of the wheels rolling over the charred track was like a heartbeat. Zicheng's broadcast has been sent, and the radio is buzzing. Deputy Taya, a strong man named Black Bear, rushes out of the tent with a gun in his hand, his eyes red. Haoyu? Is your network information true? Jishin sells us, Iron Wolf swallows resources, and monsters mutate poison? Haoyu got out of the car, raised a box of solar panels and filters, and glowed blue in the night light. Black Bear, it's true. Intercept the whole record. Jishin will join you to destroy our hub, then swallow your information. Trade for peace, sharing of filter elements, water sources, an intelligence network, no monopoly on arms circulation in the West. Iron Wolf's ambition, let's neutralize the monsters, and burn them all together. Black Bear hesitated, touched the barrel of the gun, and frowned at the roar of the wind blowing over the sentry point. Iron Wolf promised bullets, but the monster killed us 3. Okay, try. Broadcast all the iron teeth. Diplomacy was ignited like fire, and Iron Fang was divided internally. The deputy led the team to defect, and the gunshots turned to the Iron Wolf camp. The shouts of melee came from afar, mixed with the roar of explosions and the clang of broken iron hooks. Jishin hid in the tent behind Iron Wolf, his face was livid, and he growled, "The Black Bear has rebelled? This fox Haoyu, the deal will cut off my escape." Iron Wolf slammed the table, and the barrel of the gun struck the wood with a muffled sound. Monsters on. The poisonous beasts bit the joints and swallowed their nets. But the monster tide was in chaos. The smoke bombs of Taya's betrayal were thrown out, and the gray mist choked people, and hybrid beasts roared, causing the mutated wolves to kill each other. The wet sounds of claws tearing each other and the miserable howls were harsh. The pivotal decisive battle climaxes one after another. Xinyan led the counterattack, and the combined troops surged out like a tide. The torch array burned through the fog, and the heat wave hit her face. She hit 3 poisonous beasts with an iron pipe, and the crisp sound of broken joints was accompanied by blood spray. Haoyu, diplomacy is successful. The iron teeth turned back, and the monsters bit their own people. Haoyu rushed back and took command personally. The barrel of the gun was aimed at Jishin's hiding place. The bullets screeched and wiped the air, hitting the tent sail. The cloth was torn. Jishin, come out. The conspiracy has been exposed, the poisonous beasts are backlashing, and the net will not be destroyed. Jishin rushed out, holding the rusty iron hook, his eyes as red as blood. Haoyu, you won this time, but the struggle for power is endless. There are more external forces. Before he finished speaking, Black Bear led a team around, with guns pointed. Boss, swallowing resources? Haoyu's deal is stable, join the net. The melee was short and fierce, and the remnants of the monster retreated amidst the torches and gunfire, leaving behind a stench of burnt hair and poisonous blood, and claw marks deeply scratching the ground. Jishin was chained back, and Tailang bowed his head and surrendered, handing over the key to the arsenal. Zicheng gasped and reported, the green light of the communicator flashing. Haoyu, the entire network is mobilized, 15 tribes are connected. The iron teeth are disintegrated, the intelligence is optimized, the source of the monster poison is locked in the old laboratory, and it is burned. Haoyu stood on the high wall of the ruins, with the wind blowing away the aftertaste of the smoke. The coolness after the heat wave receded made his heart surge, from the loneliness of rummaging through the ruins for filter elements to mobilizing the entire network to resolve the final crisis. This growth is like a fire-quenching chain. Wisdom is no longer a trading trick, but a sharp sword to create order. The net was stable, and the fire burned into the wider night sky, but he knew that there would always be new shadows deep in the apocalypse. But tonight, our hearts are connected and we are not alone in our struggle for survival. Turning around, he said to everyone, brothers, the crisis is over, the campfire continues. Resources are flowing, and new alliances are expanding. Lao Zhang raised his hook and laughed. Haoyu, the empire is established. The poisonous beasts retreated, and the railway tracks were repaired. Zicheng spread out the map. Information from the 16 tribes is here, the western region is stable. The night wind blew through the broken walls of the hub, bringing the rusty smell of distant ruins and the moisture of the soil. The heat wave of the campfire was like the embrace of an old friend, licking everyone's faces. Laughter surged like a wave. Lao Zhang's iron hook struck the wine bottle, making a sonorous rhythm, and Alan's rough voice was mixed with northern district slang, making Tinia burst into laughter. Haoyu jumped down from the high wall, and the crisp sound of his feet on the scorched earth made him feel at ease. This ruins was no longer an isolated island, but the heart of the network. Ziqing came forward, still holding the map scroll in her hand. She blinked and said with tired excitement in her voice, "Haoyu, the signal of the 16 tribes is stable. The key to the arsenal of Taya in the western district is obtained, the resource circulation is opened, and the new alliance is expanding like wildfire." Haoyu patted her shoulder and conveyed the warmth in his palm. "Well done, Ziqing. As soon as your broadcast was broadcast, Zixin's conspiracy was like a paper lantern. Come on, let's celebrate by the campfire." With beads of sweat on his face, he smiled with a row of white teeth. "Ching? The monster's poisonous blood is still sticky on the boots. I will lead the army to clean up the rear." The joint torch array burned down the old laboratory, and the mutated wolf's growl finally stopped. "Haoyu, do you think that Zixin, that bastard, still wants to stand up after being locked back in the warehouse?" Everyone sat around the campfire, the flames crackled, and sparks shot up like stars, lighting up every face scarred by the wind and frost. Haoyu shook his head and looked at the railway tracks in the distance, where the shadows stretched long, like the afterglow of doomsday. "Turn over?" His ambition is like a virus, always trying to infect others. But today, the net is too rigid, and he can't bite it anymore. "Call the representatives, try him tomorrow morning, make the deal public. His old department is wooing him, so let's share resources and cut off his escape." Lao Zhang sipped his wine. The smell of wine mixed with the smell of fireworks made the air warm. "Haoyu, you are so clever. Zixin sold information to Taya, and now Taya has turned against us." When he glared, his face was as green as a moldy filter element. Ziqing came closer, the green light of the communicator flashed, and she whispered, "I intercepted the last radio link," and he shouted to Iron Wolf, "The struggle for power continues, and there are more external forces. It's a pity that the monster backfired and the iron teeth split, and he didn't even have the hook to escape. Haoyu, when I was interrogating him, I played the recording and let the whole network listen to his tricks." Haoyu nodded, and a feeling of emotion surged in his heart, from the lone wolf rummaging for solar panels in the ruins to the current network owner commanding 16 tribes. Every crisis along the way is like the fire of a forging knife, burning away the glitz and leaving behind the edge. He turned to Sinyan. "The army is well trained, Sinyan. The joint defense line is stable. We can stop the next wave of monsters or man-made disasters." At dawn, the warehouse door of the hub creaked open, and the friction of the iron chains sounded like a low roar. Zixin was escorted out. His face was stained with blood, and his eyes still retained the red wildness. He raised his head and stared at Haoyu, his voice hoarse like worn gears. "Haoyu, you win. The trading network is booming, but the doomsday is unreasonable. The iron teeth are just the beginning. The old legion in the east, the mutant nest in the south, and the tricks of resource monopoly, I will never go wrong." Haoyu stood still, and the wind blew into the warehouse. The coldness made the smell of rust stronger, and he said calmly, "Zixin, your trick is to cut off the network and borrow animals, mine is to connect the network to share the fire. A public trial of you is not to take revenge, but to show the whole alliance that ambition is like poisonous claws. It bites others before it bites itself. Your old team promised filter elements and intelligence, and they will disperse." Zixin sneered, and the clang of the swaying chains echoed. "Sharing? A joke. The tribe is a pack of wolves. If you are the leader, you have to swallow up resources." Ziqing stepped forward and played the radio. Amidst the buzzing, his voice echoed, "Swallow their nets. Representatives of the old ministry, a few tough guys." Hearing this, his face turned pale. One of them stepped forward and hit Zixin's feet with a hook. Sparks flew everywhere. "Boss, are you selling us for iron teeth? Haoyu's filter element is valuable, and the water source is shared by the tribe. When the net goes in, Zixin comes out." Zixin's body swayed, and his eyes dimmed, like candles in the wind. Haoyu waved his hand, lock him to hard labor in the East District, and atone for his sins in exchange for freedom. The net does not kill people, it only cuts off roots. The escort team dragged him away, and the sound of the iron chains faded away. The sunlight outside the warehouse shone in, illuminating the bloodstains on the ground, symbolizing the dissipation of old hatred like the dawn. After the trial, the hubs boiled. The queue of trucks was winding like a long queue, the crunch of tires crushing gravel mixed with the low roar of engines, loaded with filters, ammunition and food, rushing towards the new Alliance tribe. Haoyu rode on the lead car, while Ziqing sat in the passenger seat. The map was spread out, and she crossed the red line with her finger. Haoyu, 17 tribes are joining forces. The old army in the East District heard about Xin and promised bullets in exchange for intelligence. The hunters in the southern lair trade animal skin armor to protect against the mutant tide. Xinyan followed with the escort, the iron pipe flashed, and she shouted, "The army opens the way. Prepare the torches, and keep the monster shadows away." The wind blew through the convoy, and the dust raised the burnt aroma mixed with rosin. Haoyu's heart surged. This empire is not a pile of bricks and stones, but a web of people's hearts. It started from a small tribe and now connects 18 tribes. Resources flow like blood. The loneliness of the end is finally gone. A few days later, a grand campfire party was lit in the central square of the hub. This is a rare grand event in the last days. Representatives of the 18 tribes gathered together. The fire was as tall as a hill, and the flames shot into the sky. The heat wave hit the face, mixed with the popping sound of firewood and the echo of the howling of wolves in the distance. The air is filled with the aroma of barbecue, mixed with the warmth of the wine pot and the moisture of the earth, making people forget the coldness of the ruins. Haoyu stood next to the fire and raised an old gun fished out of the iron-tooth storage. The barrel of the gun flashed blue under the firelight. "Brothers and sisters, the doomsday virus has swallowed up the old world, but our fire cannot be extinguished. From searching for filter elements in the ruins to breaking up the new conspiracy, along the way, trading is not a trick, but a bridge of survival. The network connects 18 tribes, water sources, arms, and intelligence circulate. The tide of monsters recedes, and people gather together." Lao Zhang raised his hook and shouted, with a voice as rough as the north wind, "Haoyu, the empire is done. The railroad tracks are built, the west area is stable, and the east area is stabilized, and bullets are flowing in the east area." Alan poured the wine, and the hot liquid spilled on the ground and sizzled. "The wine warms the campfire, Zixin's wolf is cut off. The new alliance expands, the southern animal skin protects the body, and the monster cannot bite through it." Tienius slapped his chest, and laughed ear-splittingly. "The iron blood of the combined army, the torture trained by Xinyan, burn the poisonous beast." Xinyan stepped forward, and the iron pipe clanged to the ground. She held Haoyu's hand with a rough but warm palm. "Haoyu, from guarding the route to leading the counterattack, this growth is like a fire-tempered sword. The network is stable, and I will guard the front." Ziqing handed over the communicator, and the green light reflected on her face. "The intelligence network is fully activated, and the signal from the 19th tribe is coming. Haoyu, your strategy will turn the isolated island into a continent." The crowd cheered like waves, the crisp sound of wine bottles clinking together mixed with the sound of footsteps stamping on the ground, and the sparks of the campfire danced like a galaxy of hope. Haoyu looked at them, and his heart was full of satisfaction. Once, he was a clever businessman who relied on rummaging through ruins and making connections to exchange for water. Now, he is the leader of the alliance, and his wisdom has turned into a torch of order. Ziqing and Xinyan stand side by side, one with intelligence as eyes and the other with fighting arms. These core partners make the network unbreakable. He whispered to them, "Thank you, sisters. Without your interception and torch, the joint would have been broken up long ago." Ziqing blinked. "Haoyu, growth is not about walking alone, but about connecting with the internet." Xinyan smiled. "Yes, we will block the next wave of challenges." As the party went into the night, the flames gradually stabilized, and the remaining warmth lingered like an aftertaste. Haoyu approached the fire alone, the wind blowing gently on his face, bringing with it the low hum of the ruins in the distance. He reviewed the process, the panic of the virus outbreak, the campfire transactions of the small tribe, Jishin's obstruction, and the roar of the monster tide. Every step was like a trial, burning away timidity and forging courage. From businessman to leader, this change is not sudden, but the fire is ignited little by little. In the depths of the apocalypse, there may be new forces and new monsters, but tonight, the hearts of the 18 tribes are connected together, and survival is no longer lonely. As dawn approaches, the sun rises from the horizon and illuminates the extension of the railway track, symbolizing the dawn of a new order. Haoyu turned around and joined in the laughter. The heat of the campfire never went out, igniting endless hope.